All right, folks, let's take another stab at this. My apologies for the tech issues. It could happen again. We shall see if I get kicked out. Oh, or not connected. Connect. Let's try this again. Fingers crossed. But if I get kicked out again, I'm just gonna quit. The universe is trying to tell me no one wants to watch, and that's fine. But we're occasionally when I run these streams, the router just gets overwhelmed and kicks me. So we'll see. But for now, we are live watching NQ. This is the 24 tick rank code chart with the algo on it. This algo is a combination of the trade and perform algo, which are these like 3 or 4 signals. These are each of these signals, like the triangles and the stars and the bars with colors and stuff, are each a combination of criteria that needs to be met for them to be printed, and the bar in each case needs to be closed. So for instance here, this triangle will only be valid if we close bearish, but once we close bearish and if the triangle's still there, it will never repaint, it'll never disappear. So I've got the same thing here. You can see my red triangle is just a little bit smaller, but I've also got additional lines and signals and stuff like that. Some of them are old trade and perform ideas mixed in with my own. Others are actually totally my own, like concepts and trade setups that some of which I'm developing now and aren't quite ready to be explained because I don't know exactly how often they work, and I want to have some forward testing data before sharing it with the team. So I realized that my screen is my algo screen is a whole lot busier than this one. And during the regular trading hours when I'm trading, I'm watching Simon's chart on one screen, which looks just like that, and my chart on another screen. So realize that while this one is the one I'm using for learning and determining like what I'm gonna, like I'm trying to build this to be like optimal for me, but there are a lot of things on here that I technically don't need to find in order to find trades. All I would actually need are these, but I'm in the process of, like I said, developing some new ideas which will come about from combining things like the background purple here and these blue diamonds, as well as these arrows here. So those are basically the like parts of trade signals that I'm developing. Eventually, what's going to happen is these like the arrows and the background colors and the diamonds and all that stuff are going to actually disappear and be replaced by just one signal, right? So it looks like a lot right now because a lot of this stuff is under development, but once it's ready and those are put together, it'll just be another symbol added to this like primary chart, right? So while I tend to watch them here because I want to see how those compartmentalized signals are working, to see if I want to tweak them, optimize them, I tend to watch it here. Plus I have more information here, but on another screen, typically I've got Simon's charts, which are this one plus one more signal he's added. So just so you understand, that's why it's so busy, is that there's some new ideas in development here that are not yet complete trade ideas, right? So an example of that is that when you have just a single bar that get this background color, it does not so much apply at all actually when you have lots and lots and lots of them in an order, in a row, I mean, consecutively. This is generally a sign of momentum. See that? And then this one has the potential to get swept, right? And so there's two things you can learn from just this signal. And like I said, I'm developing it into something a little bit more sparse that will, instead of giving me this red all the time or this pink all the time, it'll just tell me that this is the better entry. But like it's not quite developed yet. But the idea here is that when there's so many like this, what you end up getting is trapped shorts. So your initial scalp, which is identified by like the stars and the orange bars, is not as good as your secondary scalp. It's actually this one. See how it traded above the high but closed below? See that? Closed low, but only after trading above this high. So it's like they tried to sell it, they came back up, swept up all these stops, and then trapped them, right? Tried one more time, failed. So what I want is to enter on this one and not enter on this one. And that is a very difficult thing to do without an algo because you don't have confidence of whether or not you should take the first one or the second one or the third one or the fourth one, right? So the algo helps me determine whether or not I want to be aggressive, which is what I would do if we just had a single background color. So like this one here means I can be aggressive on the very next entry, which is this one. I don't have to wait for this low to get taken out because there was just a single bar with a background color, right? With purple in this case, which indicates that there are buyers like hitting here. And so once you can get over them with aggression, which is what most of these signals are, signs of aggression from the footprint or the DOM and the time and sales and stuff like that, like basically order flow signals, that you can get a nice scalp here more often than not. There's an extra line here I don't need. In fact, I don't need any of these. We can get rid of these. These are, and that's interesting that it actually came back to that location. I can show you later where I came up with this little green area. I'm not, even though I've got a lot of setups and strategies for finding locations, I am not a location trader. I don't sit at a level and wait for the market to come to me and then just like risk getting traded through on that level. So like for instance, even though I have this green area marked here as an important area I want to see buyers show up, I'm not going to just put an order here to buy. I need to see the algo signal here, which would occur and be confirmed at the close of that bar to get long, which would happen here, right? So my signal comes here, but my entry is only when that bar closes. And so technically my entry is probably here, right? But the thing people often misunderstand is they're like, oh, you know, if I share like a level or an area or whatever, they're like, you know, it came right to your level and you didn't get long. You know, it's like, well, I will get long as I can get that order flow confirmation. So that's what I'm primarily using the algo for in general, is getting that confirmation, that objective visual confirmation that yes, they are defending this level that I expected to be defended. And so then I can get long. Whereas some traders just use location and they're like, this is the line in the sand. If they don't hold this, it's going to be bearish. So I'll just buy as close to this as possible. I'm not saying that's wrong. Oh yeah, for sure. Here, let me turn it up. My bad. I had it lower because it was, here, let me know if that's better. Can you hear me better now? I didn't want it to, it was turning yellow on my, on here. I thought that might be a little bit too loud, but let me know if that is better. If you're still here. Appreciate the feedback though. I never want it to be too loud and hurt people with headphones, but certainly if it's not loud enough to hear, it's not going to be helpful. So, yeah, let me know. I can go higher than that. I just don't want to break anybody's eardrums. But yeah, so in general, the locations that you'll see like laterally, like the shaded areas or the dashed lines or any of those things, I'm not taking trades blindly there. Those are areas that I'm looking for responses from the market, but I am much more confident getting in once I see this order flow signal, especially when that same like rotation rejected off of an area of interest, right? So like the area of interest up here is this voodoo range level at 11,364.75, and you can see that we rejected it here, and then we got the signals here. The orange bar and the arrow is something that's developing, and then we also had some pink in the background that disappeared, right? This one had 3 bars of pink, so there was a little bit more momentum. But if you look here, you can actually, I can see, like I said, this pink background is just it's in development. But the idea here is when there's pink background, there's a lot of momentum to the upside, and so you don't want to be aggressive. Okay, let me put it this way: the more pink bars you have consecutively, the less aggressive you want to fade it, right? It doesn't mean you can't fade it. It means you need to wait for more conservative opportunities. So for instance, rather than taking this first sign of aggression, I want to see if this guy's stop gets taken and if they keep firing at him. So taking it here or here would be better than here. But the very, very, very best in this case, would be waiting for another signal after this rotation finishes and seeing if sellers, try to take this level again. So what I'll do, I didn't hear because I was getting my internet fixed, is I will actually mark that area, and I will mark that area, right, and then look for signals of sellers showing up in that area. So here or here is another one, or here, right? So any of those become relatively good entries for a sell for me. Whereas this one, even though it looks the same, the bar signal, the order flow signals are still the same. It's too aggressive for me due to all this momentum, right? Now this one only had 3 bars of momentum, whereas this one had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So the more consecutive bars of momentum we're seeing, the less aggressive you want to be. When there's only 1, 2, 3, right? Especially after it came, like if you have lots and then a little and then less, right? Like this is a better entry than this. This becomes an even better entry than this because we're seeing the momentum actually dry up every time they try to push it higher, right? So now when it comes back down, you can see that this color's just 1 bar, and then we immediately get a response. And it's at a location. So this buy is as good as this sell, even if you're bearish, because all I need is 10 to 15 points for me to stay green, right, on the day. So as long as I get 10 to 15 points 65, 70% of the time with that setup, I'm good to take it continuously over and over and over again every time it sets up, basically, right? Now, like I said, you could just buy every star that is at the bottom of this channel, right? Like there's a channel here from blue to blue, or you can say from the shaded area to the shaded area. It's actually multiple different channels overlapping. I'm just trying to decide which ones I want to use and how I want to use them. But you can see that this is clearly underneath all of this, which is like an ATR based channel where we'd expect most of the volume to fire off in here. When we get beyond them, either above or below, these order flow signals of aggression have basically they're a signal that someone is trying to prop up the market. Will they be successful? Not always, right? Like in this case, this guy tried to fight this heavy momentum trend here on this small time frame. He was above the channel, right? And if he's got a big enough stop, he can survive it for that move. But if you're scalping with a 15 or 10 point stop, you're going to get swept out before you get that reversion, and then that entire rotation can get stopped out before you actually start the down rotation. So I might be going on a little bit of a tangent, but you can see how now it's become purple this whole time, right? So now we have the exact opposite situation as we had here, where we now have had like someone tried to get short at the low. They ripped higher, right? They tried to fight it and got 2 bars of momentum, and then buyers showed up there, right? And then what did we see? Lots and lots and lots and lots of sellers pushing on the market, right? So if it's bearish, this will result in lower prices, right? So what we would expect is for this bar here to get beat, just like this one did, right? That's what we would expect. That would be normal. So when it doesn't happen, when that signal doesn't fire, and then in this case it's not a stop. It's in fact it's just something you'd miss, right? I would say, okay, we're getting more and more bearish momentum here. Purple, 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 getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I might not want to fight that momentum, but when this fails to get immediately beat, and they actually hold this low, which I identified earlier on in the session as something important. That's actually from yesterday. Well, now all of a sudden you can start looking for momentum, like continuation trades. So a good example of that would be to find the low, which is here, and then draw the volume profile of that rotation, which gives you a high volume node most likely somewhere. which in this case is from here to about here, right? So for bulls, did I move that? I did not mean to move that. I was trying to get the arrow. For bulls to take this, what they need to do is develop volume above that level. Now, the other thing you can do to find a trade, if you want to go ahead and try to trade it long, whoops, I did not do that right. I included one too many bars. We want to take the up of this, and that will give us another high volume node, which is actually at the low down here, right? So I can just leave this area the same. So what that's telling me is if we can get buyers to show up and defend this, technically this is awfully close. It would be better if this was all high volume, that you can then scalp back up to this level here, most likely, right? So if you'd have bought this, your target is now here to take some profit, and then it could just continue. But often what you'll do is you'll develop volume higher, pull back, and then bounce if it's bullish, right? And we have a early hint that it may be trying to be bullish, right? The market's dynamic, so it's not like once you just decide that it looks bullish that you're just only going to buy it forever, right? It's in this case it actually looked bearish because they got underneath all of this volume, and then when they had the opportunity to sink them, they failed to do anything with it, right? In other words, the bears fumbled. Similarly to how the bulls fumbled this morning, they had this opportunity to crush them, which should have happened right here, right? If it's bearish, we should be taking out this low here, and it still could happen, right? It's dynamic; it can still happen. They may need to collect some more liquidity up here, and they'll get stuck at this high volume node. That would be very normal if it's bearish, but usually once you get these consecutive purples on my algo, you're going to see immediate flush as long as it's like bearish all day, and we can see that the direction of momentum all day on the higher time frame than the 24 tick Renko chart has been bearish. So the bears the direction with least resistance should be lower. Simply, you can know that with experience just by looking at the candlestick chart, right? Like all day we trapped buyers at the high, and then every time they tried to save it, sellers showed up, right? So you would say the session itself looked bearish, but now we're into the close. This is like the last hour, right? And so the close on a bearish day generally closes at the low, but not always. Sometimes you get a retracement. We saw that yesterday. It happened after market. No, it was Friday. Friday. Very similar thing Friday, right? Bearish all day after trapping longs all the way to the lows, pushed underneath the yearly low, and then got this spike at the end of the day, which was confirmed yesterday, right? Which got me long, confirmed Sunday, which made for a good long yesterday, and a good here to take profits today if you got out in time, right? It would suck to get long here, hold through all of this, and then give it all back, but it happens, you know. But it's the important thing is to recognize that the opportunity occurred because this spike was stabilized overnight, right? And even though they got above it, they didn't flush underneath it. Well, now we got above this, and we actually flushed underneath it. So normally, technically we didn't get underneath Friday's low on NQ, but we did on ES. So technically what you'd expect is bearish to neutral here. So this area would be neutral, trading in a balance in this area, and true bearish would be retrace and then puke, right? Maybe out of this purple pivot here would make a lot of sense, or especially after this test of the voodoo range level. So we should expect lower, but maybe not right away, right? Especially since all the volume on this push to the yearly low was in this area. These red lines are where the volume was for the low of the year on Friday on NQ. So if you look, you know, you could have gotten scalps out of that area repeatedly. See how that set up good little scalp moves? It failed here, and I took that trade, unfortunately. But I also took a ton of these, right? So it's like you don't just want to randomly buy it, but if you saw a sign of aggression, which was here, it made sense to take it. So, but you can see that we tried to get under it, and we actually did close a 15-minute candle below it. But if you look at the higher time frames, the 30-minute could not get below this high volume node, identified by these red lines, right? So if we can close back up above 11,364.75, if we close up here, we've then rejected this low, which is bullish in the short term. Similarly to how we did it here, where we rejected the low on Friday, which brought about this retrace, right? Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to come up and break this high. No, it doesn't mean that. It means just that we're not going to go lower right now. But that's only if we actually close higher than this, right? So if we want to know, like, what's London going to look like tomorrow? Well, it's going to depend if this low can be defended. But if they can defend this low, then we're going to come back to this higher. See, if you, here, I'll show you. If you measure the volume here, from where it started to get bearish down here this day, Friday, all the way to now, what you'll see is the volume area is here, right? And so if we had to get, and see how they're rejecting it, that's the easiest way to show you. If you can't see it any other way, this is like the visual representation of that. So see how there's a higher, like a double distribution here, right? There's a higher one and a lower one, and the lower one has all the volume, right? So if we defend this, if buyers defend this and close back up here at the high volume, at the highs of this volume area, right? Volume area high of this, like, it's not volume area high of the day, it's volume area high of this composite volume profile. If we could get up there and close up there, what you would expect is a test of this, right? These areas. And where would that be? Probably right here at like 11,455, and I've got a voodoo range level right there. So that would be the spot to look for the short, is only once they came up here and rejected, right? Anywhere in this zone, this range here, right? This range right here is where you would want to look for a short. If you were bearish, you wouldn't really want to short it until it got up here and turn it red, right? So that's the area that, like, if you want to see trend continuation, don't buy puts down here, right? Wait until they try to recover and then fail to continue. Very similarly to what we saw today. And so when we do the review, we'll look at 2 opportunities you actually had, if not 3, to short this range. And then your target would be back into this volume area down here, this high volume area, which is, like I said, measured actually like this. See the low here? That's not quite right. Was it to this one? Oh, I might have it too high. Should have put it down here. Oh, I have it too high. I see it. It's on the smaller time frame. So it's this to the lows. You can, here, I'll show you. It's easier just to do it the way I did it. So the wave to the low. There we go. So see how all of the volume is down here? And it's 2 different time frames. So there's this one on the 5-minute, and then I believe it's the 15-minute draw from like here. I'm not gonna, here, I'll show you. It's either this, sorry about the cat, he's just needy, he's fine. Let's see. Yeah, see, that's that draw. The other one would have been, let's see, is it, hi cat. Oh, there we go. See, so there's there's where that one came from. Oh, this might be the top of here. Come here. I'm not finding it, but one way or another, when I did the draws earlier, that's where they were. That's basically how I find those levels. And you can see that the lower one is definitely more. My goodness, cat. I'm gonna lock you out if you don't shut up. All right, He'll be back. But the bottom one was more accurate for a bounce, but the top one being defended would be the sign of buyers taking back control, and then you would expect them to bounce back up. So that is occurring currently, right? Again, I swear he's fine. He's just super needy. These are just other time frames. It's the same chart. It's just a different time frame. So I watch for signals here too. But this one is the one I actually trade on because that way I can manage risk. So for buyers to pull this off, they need to defend this level, right? And so they actually did give us a star here. If you wanted to take it, that it makes sense to try it, right? But notice that like all this bearishness here held, right? They could not develop volume above this high. So if they do take this out, you can't keep trying to buy it. Just come here. He's just playing games. He wants me to chase him because he's bored. Like you think he wants you to sit on your lap or something, but or like that he needs something, like he's hungry, but he's not. He's already eaten, and he literally just wants to play. But he's young, so that's what they do. And the only way to deal with it is, if you don't have cats, is to ignore it until he realizes that that's not going to work. Otherwise, you're actually telling him that he should keep doing it if you keep chasing him, and then he runs away. Cats are funny, especially these purebreds. He's a Sphinx, and yeah, they're needy ass cats. They are. Those animals like require a lot of dedication. I've had Siamese too, and the Sphinx is definitely harder to. You have to be more patient with them. Why can't I delete you, Arrow? Than I even did with the two Siamese. Although I have also heard that what you really need is just a second one, and then they're not so needy because they're not so damn bored. They're just extremely smart animals, and while that's pretty marvelous, that sometimes it also is a little bit annoying because they're also noisy. All right, so see how we went underneath it, right? So we rejected this high. Again, we weren't watching the algo, but there wasn't actually a signal here, so that's fine. The signal was here, this star here, when they reached. So it traded above this high by like one tick, and then dropped back in and gave us an aggressive signal. So that would have been your short if you thought it was bearish here. I kind of thought they were going to hold this, so I did not even think about taking it. It gave you a lot of heat, and then rejected. There was no signal here, so it wasn't until the triangle. And I'm not going to take the triangle entry unless I'm trading with the trend. Like this one would be better, actually, believe it or not, for a scalp. This one is a little bit risky. But see how now we've gotten underneath this, right? Normally, if you thought this might still be bullish, you'd start to look for opportunities to bounce back up. But we should know from looking at the higher time frame that this is not the kind of momentum move you want to fade, because of the fact that we should have seen, if this was bullish, like I drew before with the volume profile, we should have seen this defended, right? And so they defended the lower one here. They came up, they got stuck at the voodoo range level, and now they're giving up the top of this, what's basically a high volume node. You could think about it like that, like a composite high volume node. And you can see how they tried to save it twice and failed. And now they're at the lower end of this voodoo range here, right? So we've rejected up here, rejected this one, rejected this one. Now they are working on rejecting this voodoo range from 11,364.75 to 11,286.25. Doesn't mean we should just short? No. It definitely does not mean we should just short. But it means that if they can close candles down here, that any retraces up here is where you'd want to get short. And that the longs that we might have thought were going to develop are probably not going to develop. And so therefore the close will likely be at or near the lows of the day. So if I was trading this, I probably won't, just because I'm a little distracted. I would not be taking longs here. Even if it's set up, I would ignore them. You can see how we now have the momentum signal a little bit later than I'd like it to be. We get it started here, and they might immediately bounce back and try to take it back, in which case the next move down should have a bigger, more consecutive bars that are purple. So let's see what they do here. This is another important level from earlier. It would be funny. Why is my... it would be funny if they took one... They got through one, not the other. I wonder if this... let me just see. Hold on here. My keyboard's giving me issues. Do I not have a battery button on here? That's funny. Like everything possible that could break today has been breaking. Here it is. I think my battery might be out on my keyboard, you guys. Let me see. Have I lost? Yep. Wow, that's funny. Okay. Well, I'm glad I'm not in a trade. I will be right back. I believe the problem is the battery. I will be right back. All right, let's see if this works. Yeah, so I would not have, even though we see a algo generated order flow signal there, the star and the diamond, which is normally a sign of some aggression. I mean, it is a sign of aggression to the upside. I'm not going to take it because, yep, all fixed. It was the battery. That's funny. Everything breaking at the same time. That happens. Yeah, so even though there is a signal here, I'm ignoring it. Because you can see that it's still purple. See that? And I'm not saying it's not going to work. It's just it's not going to work often enough for me to take the trade based on my back testing. That when this is still purple, and especially when you're fighting momentum here, and we've got trap buyers, which can be seen. I mean, if you look at where the aggressive buyers were getting long, which are the stars and the green bars in particular, as well as these diamonds. You can see they're all up here, right? As well as like down to here. I didn't quite draw that far enough because it's this one too. So those are all where the traps buyers are. If you want to be a seller, you want to see an aggressive sell signal coming as the market attempts to break through that area and fails. That is the basics, right? And so like, again, I would not be able to get short yet, but when this bar closes, if it was a star, I could potentially take the trade. It would just be a little bit out of position. We would prefer to be up here at the top of these, where all these channel lines on the top are, because right now we're at the bottom of these channel lines, so the potential for getting your stop swept is much higher when you're on the wrong side of the channel. But if you're trading with momentum, it actually works more often than you think it does. And you can kind of break that rule a little bit. If it's balanced, you never ever want to trade on the wrong side of that channel. But the way I know that there's probably momentum is that first of all we've got purple in the background, and then more than one bar especially, and then because that's not just like a trapped seller, it's like they tried to continue selling. And then we've got these guys, these buyers are actually trapped, and we've traded below all of these channel lines. We traded below it, right? And so normally, if it was balanced, this is a pretty good place to get a scalp back up. But I do not see this as balanced. We've got all of these lines dropping, and then all these traders trapped. So it's like I said, so if you only have Simon's algo, right? You have to just kind of visually see that it's not balanced. In other words, the lines are starting to drop, and that there's buyers getting caught up here that will probably, like this guy here, getting stuck, right? And rejected is going to end up being like an impediment to going any higher for the time being. They're going to need to develop down here for a bit and then spike up to get over some of those trap buyers, that one in particular. So you'd have to see that and kind of like almost like in your imagination. Whereas like I prefer to have the algo like give me some like visual confirmation with the color changes. That's like I said, so that's all that is. The purple in the background, and then there's pink on the other side. And you're going to see it happen when things start to look like there's momentum coming into the market, and that's like I said here. If I would have gotten long here, my target would have been this midline, and I would have missed it by like 2 ticks, right? And how frustrating that is. There's no sell signal here, but notice we're purple, right? So we're also not looking for buys. So there's literally nothing to do here, and there's only like 20 minutes left in the day. If we were able to come back up here, sweep up some of these stops, and then roll over with an algo signal to the downside, that would be a good sell. But there's no guarantee that'll happen, and I really have no reason to think that has to happen. It can literally just rug pull, or just rip because it's the end of the day too, right? Like there's different participants at the end of the day compared to what there were like 2 hours ago. So all of these guys who bought up here, who got dropped, they may not really care if price comes back to their level. They might be out of the market already, or they're getting in with like a longer term time horizon. The later in the day, the more you're going to run into longer term traders, and that's when some of these scalp techniques will actually not work as well. The other time when you'll run into that is actually the first 30 minutes, or especially the first 15 minutes. There's a lot of bigger, longer term traders that try to make decisions right away because they're pressured to, right? Like they're forced to, let's say, by either mandates or just their positions are underwater, and they've got to get out of the trade, and they've got this entire regular trading hour day to look ahead to, and so they're gonna, if they have an opportunity to flatten that trade like at break even in that first 15 minutes, they're gonna do it. But yet then they're just gonna be out of the market. So it's like sometimes in those first 15 minutes in particular of the day, we will see a lot of the order flow signals, which are just signaling aggression, but that aggression is not necessarily like participants getting into the market and planning to defend those levels. This is another buy signal, interestingly. But instead, it's actually participants just making decisions that are like finalized, and then they're either out of the market, or whatever that decision was, they were planning on doing it and holding that position like for a lot longer than maybe what I would need to put pressure on them. So in the last 15 to 30 minutes or the first 15 to 30 minutes, it's a good idea to consider only trading certain setups and avoid some of the like quick scalps. Not only would you just have to be ultra fast to knock those out when it's like really volatile and fast, but I mean, it's possible for sure. A lot of people do it, but I find that at least when it comes to these order flow signals, that we end up getting a lot of them at the end of the day, and they're less reliable because there's simply just more volume and more participants who are not trading back here suddenly coming into the market and being like, hey, we're at my level, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to hold it for 3 weeks, right? And like, I'm not going to be able to fade you and get you to stop out down here for me to get out, right? Like that's not going to work for my technique, which is to get 10 to 15 points, right? Well, the only way you can get the market's going to turn around is if you get traders pressured. Well, if they're buying here with the intention of either getting to 11,400 or they're going to hold it to 1,100, it's not going to matter. I'm not going to be able to get them out of the market and get any like what's it called, like continuation basically on that trade. So while sometimes it'll work, it'll rarely work huge, and yet when it doesn't work, it's just going to crush me, right? So or I guess it would crush me the other way, because in this case it's saying go ahead and buy it, and you'll probably get 10 to 15 points. Now it might work, right? I'm just not going to trust it quite as well as I would an hour or two ago, but it did suggest to be a buyer here, which is interesting, and especially since it actually is trying to float higher. But what I'm watching for actually is a short opportunity, but again, it might fire even though it shouldn't, or I should say even though it's not as reliable, just because there's all these new participants. Hopefully that makes sense. So we got a rejection off this faded or shaded channel. What I really want, though, is, and what I need to actually take a short would be an algo signal. So an orange bar like this, or star, or else we need to make an apex like this and then trade above it and fall down. Okay, so that's actually another sign to the upside. So now they're actually we've got sellers actually giving up here, who were firing and trying to hold this level. They suddenly gave up. See, this green level is very important and identified earlier in the session, or yesterday I think it was. I think maybe it was overnight. And so when they get under it and then suddenly give up here, it's probably a sign we're going to go higher for the short term, right? Just because the pink with the diamond or the purple with the red, this kind of bar, the purple with the red diamond or the pink with the white diamond, when it's in the right spot, right, when the location aligns, like here, it didn't work, but usually when the location aligns, but it's not pink, never mind. When it's pink or purple, it's got the diamond, it means they are quick, that whoever you are fighting, right, so in this case it's the shorts who are getting beat here, they are exiting their position very quickly, or there are buyers FOMOing in, basically. And like I said, that by itself is not necessarily long, just seeing like big buyers coming in all of a sudden. Oh, there's the short signal right there, and that's in the right location. Fuck. Well, last 15 minutes, I really shouldn't be trading it anyway. That is a valid signal. But we just had these guys, getting crushed. So let's see. They might hold this here. I would not be surprised if buyers actually hold this now, because it looked like they were going to flush it, right? And then, and see how we had lots of purple, then 2 purple, then 1 purple, then 1 purple. That is a clear sign, actually, that I wasn't paying attention to because it's a new idea, that sellers are running out of momentum. They're not building momentum as we go lower. They're actually running out of momentum as we go lower. And so, again, it does not mean that the highs are going to be broken, but it means that they're going to have to, so the market's kind of like a wrestling match or an arm wrestle match, right? And when the side that is winning starts putting pressure on the side that's losing, you can expect to see certain things, right? Like when that guy pushes and you see the other guy's hand come so close to the table, right? What you expect is just bam, hits the table, game over, right? So when I saw this, even though the algo told me, hey, you might want to buy this, and the algo was right, which is usually how it works, 60 to 70% of the time, I just, like I said, didn't trust it because it was the end of the day. But normally, if this was not the end of the day and it was the time when I normally trade, and I was like, hey, look, it looks really bearish, we got onto this important level. If I start to see this purple going away, where it's like, here, I'll show you. We were getting like gobs of purple, right? 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row, right? So it was getting bigger. They were pushing and they were getting something out of it. Well, now they were pushing under that, where they actually needed to push with more energy, and they were getting nothing for it, and they were actually bouncing off of it. Had this one not been pink, I might have actually taken it. Just a single purple here by itself after a big push like that is actually a sign that they're trapped. But when this one's also purple, I hesitated, so that I might need to adjust that. But this one, followed by a green, is actually this is a pretty reliable entry. And I would have taken it had it not been the end of the day. And I even said, that's another buy signal, but I didn't go and take it just because it's... so I did see it. I acknowledged that the algo clearly wants me to be long in other words, it thinks that the next 15 points are probably higher rather than lower. It is not... the algo's not sophisticated enough to look at the whole day and say that this high is more likely to be taken than this high. The only way to do that is to extrapolate onto a higher time frame. So for instance, this is the 80 tick with the same exact signals, but it's still a Renko bar, right? A Renko chart. So now I can see the exact same thing happening here. See how it's like price is going down, but we're only getting 1 bar of purple. I know this is a purple bar, but the background is purple here, then it goes black. And then we get 1 background that's purple, and then we get an aggressive buyer, right? As soon as we see that, we should know that it doesn't mean that it's not going to go any lower, but it means that they are pushing to save this, right? So what I can do is I can say, okay, because this is the 80 tick, right? And this area is so big, right? It covers this whole area here. this range of this bar is so large, I could say, okay, if we can get, even if I say just like the wick of this, right? If we can get a buy signal that fires off of this zone, I can probably get a good scalp as long as it happens here. Well, that would be this. Or would it be earlier? Might be earlier. Yeah, I just missed it. Didn't get down there. It did hit the area. Oh, it's to the... Did I do this right? Yeah, so it went up to this point of control. It did. So it went up to the point of control. Interesting. Of the next bar. But if I took the whole bar, which is what I said initially, yeah, that gives me this entry or this one. This entry or this one interacted with the range of that earlier bar on the 80 tick when the momentum was dying off. Right? So on the chart here, that's this. Right? After this, it's saying buy aggressive, follow aggressive buyers once you see this. That's what the algo's telling me, right? And we did see the hint of that here, where the purple is going away, even though they were pushing lower, right? So we did see that, and then you could do the exact same thing here. Once you see that condition, mark the area. Here, let me get rid of the bigger one so it's more clear. Okay, mark the area. Oh, mark the area. The bell just means that we might be getting, we're beyond the range of that ATR channel. So now anything in that range that's aggressive to the buy side can probably be purchased, which would be this, right? Interacted with that range. This one just missed it, but I have this other range that was created similarly, this green here, that it did fire off of, right? So this one's okay, but this one for sure and this one for sure are all rather good. And again, the other way to do this is to measure it like that, put a line at the point of control, or just mark off the high volume node here. So we'll just put the line at the point of control for now. It's a little too low, but that's the right idea. And then like one tick lower or higher than that. And then we can mark this right here. Okay, so all the volume for this move to the, whoops. All the volume for this move to the low and off the low, all the volume there fired off in this zone here. And what that tells me is that as long as buyers defend that, we should be buying. In other words, the next 15 points is probably higher. And so that worked beautifully, right? That setup worked perfectly. But it's the end of the day, so I didn't take it because, like I said, I've had unfortunate situations where I actually develop a pretty good day. Everything fires how it's supposed to, and then I follow the algo and it doesn't work. My coach has explained that. And the same thing with the very first 15 minutes. He has explained that like the back testing and the forward testing we do they're during conditions that are like normal trading hours, and that first 15 minutes and last 15 minutes or even last 30 minutes, it's not really normal trading. It's almost like trading during news, right? Where you're going to have a lot of outliers. It doesn't mean it's not going to work, right? You can't just fade the indicator. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. But you could say that your win rate is probably going to go down a little bit, or potentially going to go down a little bit. But from one individual trade to the next, there's no real great way to know whether or not this trade is going to be a winner or a loser. But what we want to do when we're trading in general is to get our trades objective enough so that we can say that more likely than not, whenever the market sets up like this, we get more wins than losses. Come here. Well, come here then. I gotcha. All right. He should stop meowing, but he'll probably start purring, so if it's too loud, let me know. He's noisy. So yeah, we've got the market closing in 8 minutes, and then we're going to go back and look at the day and find out if some of these same signals were working all day long. It's obviously a lot easier to do it in retrospect, like I just did, but the important thing to identify is that you can hopefully see that knowing which signals to look for and where is really the key, because there's so much information in the chart that if you just try to interpret one bar to the next what's happening, you're going to get totally overwhelmed, right? If you're like, okay, I see an orange bar, so they're rejecting, but here's a buyer coming in with high volume, so maybe it's going higher, right? You can't trade like that. even if you're using the candlesticks or the footprint or whatever, don't try to trade like the now, right? Would be my best suggestion. Even if you're a very short-term trader, don't just trade what you like. People say trade what you see, right? But you don't trade what you see based on what you see now. You trade what you see now based on what you have been seeing, and what your expectations are based on back testing or previous experience, to know that when I see this in these conditions, the following happens more often than not. So you can't just say okay, what you can do is that, and then say, I'm going to teach a computer to signal me when that kind of condition where I might want to get in is there, right? And that's what these green bars and what the stars do. But as you can see, like, this star didn't do much, whereas this green bar did a hell of a lot. So while there's nothing wrong with taking every one of the signals, you're going to pay a ton of fees doing it that way, and you're going to take stops that are going to be pretty frustrating. So if you're a robot, right, or just like a computer program, like, you probably would win doing that. But as a human being, if you're affected at all by like taking stops or having your runner stop out or whatever, if you're likely to make mistakes because of the results, you need to have more criteria other than just, there are aggressive buyers here, I should buy. Because that's what the algo is telling me, is aggressive buyers showing up right now, right? But instead of just taking the trade there, what I need to do is be prepared earlier to see that this is the area I want to be long and the direction I want to be is long. If you don't know the direction you want to trade before you get in, you will not most likely be able to confidently hold the position to your target, because the very first time you see any sign of weakness, you're just going to let it go, right? And again, like, that is a style. Like, you could trade that way and just let it go every time you see any sign of aggression. But you're going to be in and out constantly, and you're going to be missing moves, like extensions, and that might also cause some problems, right? With you, psychologically, you're going to end up causing execution problems because of psychological issues that you're creating with your overactive trade style. Okay, so what did we see? Let's do a quick analysis here into the close. We saw buyers defend that important low. They pulled back into this important area, they absorbed all the selling here and got high volume aggressive buyers coming in. And then they established volume above this previous resistance here. Okay, that's what happened. We've now established volume above. Now look, we got momentum to the upside for 2 candles or 2 bars. And they tried to fight it. We got 2 bars more. And so these guys that put their stop, anybody who sold this bar and put their stop above it, their stop got hit here. So this was the very first opportunity to take a short for me. If this wasn't the last 10 minutes of the day, I would not have shorted this one, but this one is okay to short because it developed as a result of this guy getting his stop swept out. The problem is there's no flag here. See how there's a flag here? I really needed a flag here to know for sure that this is the setup that I have back tested and I know works 60+% of the time. I don't know about when it's no flag. See, this one you'd think there's a flag there. It looks like an apex, but there's no signal, right? And if there's no signal, there's a reason for it, because the algo has no like opinions, right? It just tells me if conditions are there or not. And so by seeing that there's no purple flag here and no extension to the right, although there was an earlier extension, but there's no current extension to the right, what that tells me is that there's at least one missing piece for that signal to show up here. There's a missing piece here. So any sell I use based on that apex, while it did work perfectly, it is missing a piece of that criteria. I don't know how critical that is, because without seeing every piece separately, you won't know which one's missing. But the worst case scenario in this situation is that you miss a trade that works, right? What I would rather do is wait for the algo to confirm that all of the criteria are there that I've deemed important and take those trades, because chances are that's going to be your higher win rate. Okay, there's another buy signal. So now we have to add, well, before we would have had to know, do we want to be buyers here, right? This location was clearly defended. They developed volume above. What I would really like to see is to get a buy signal in here, right? This is actually above this. See that? So they're trying to make a higher low here. So you'd only want to get long here if you thought we were actually in a bullish trend, right? Which we might be, but it's a pretty aggressive buy to get it all the way up here when we knew the location we wanted to buy was here, and we got the signal here. When the signal shows up higher up, it doesn't like confirm that this high is going to be broken or anything. It just means that the same order flow criteria that existed here also existed here, right? It does not mean that the likelihood is that it'll get, catapulted higher just because we have two in a row. I wish it was that simple, but it's not. But it does mean if you thought this was an area you wanted to get long for some reason, that someone else is getting long aggressively here, and they're absorbing sellers, so you're probably going to get 15 points, or at least up to the resistance. But unfortunately, you can see we have marked off here. The resistance was right here in this shaded area, and that resistance, remember, was created by trapped traders. So it doesn't mean that the price can't go past trapped traders, but usually it needs more than one try, if that makes sense. So again, these are our trapped traders identified here. Where are they? Here. So trap trader number 1. You could technically cinch this up just a tad. Oh, trap trader number 2. That's why it's there, right? These guys, and then it's marked from this. So remember, I don't know if anybody was watching the whole time. What we said was, when you have lots and lots of pink in the background, and that pink goes away, and you get a sign of aggression to the downside, right? I will eventually make that all one signal, so it just makes like a dot here or something when that all happens. For now, each of the criteria are separate, so I can watch it and see exactly how many bars I need and all that. But what I have so far is that when there's more than 2, and preferably a lot, all in a row, then you get a seller. You can typically mark that area, right? And if the sellers defend that area, especially after you get buyers there, because that's even stronger, right? So like, here's a buyer, this seller defended the area in the face of these buyers. Here's an aggressive buyer. Well, these sellers defended that area in the face of aggressive buyers, right? So each one of these that continues to defend this area has a more and more likely chance of getting that 10 to 15 push down. What it doesn't tell me, that people misunderstand, they think it means that this high won't break. That's not true. It's not how the market works. The market, what it's telling me is that this momentum that existed here potentially produced trap traders, right? But to actually take advantage of that, what you often need to do, just because this is the way the market works, is you have to take all the liquidity, absorb all the liquidity that's put here by all of these sellers. You absorb it, right? Let the buyers in, basically. Open the door. Wait for them to come in here with more aggression, which again is seen by pink in the background. And then when they go away, that is your big sell, right? So if you're trying to figure out, if you struggle with figuring out, because I did before I built this, and we're going to go over the review in just a second and show you why it's helpful. But I have struggled, I'll say, and maybe some of you have too, with figuring out when you should be just taking 10 points or in NQ or 2 points in ES, and when you might want to hold a few contracts as a runner because of the chance to get 30 points or 50 points or 100 points, right? So even if you already have a system that gets you into trades, if you are struggling with figuring out when to hold like this versus when to scalp, like I guess like this or like this would be an example of when to scalp. This one really is not a very good sell, and this one is a decent, actually a pretty good sell. This one's better, right? The key is figure out where there is liquidity that came about from aggressive sellers. If you're talking about holding sell runners, you got to find where is their liquidity, where are the buy stops that usually sit behind aggressive sellers that showed up after a period of momentum. Okay, so I'm not going to give you the criteria I'm using for building the algo. That's not fair to my time that we've spent building this. But what I will tell you is conceptually, what you need to do if you want to build something similar is identify a hypothesis and then break down that hypothesis into objective, visible criteria, right? Something that you can see on a DOM, see on a footprint, see with numbers, right? Something you can say it's there or it's not there objectively, and say when this sequence of events occurs, I have confidence that I should be short or I should be long. And so an example of that, hold on real quick. Hold on, I just gotta send a message real quick. All right, so an example of that I've used here, that I'm building, right? And since it's kind of in development, I don't know exactly how it's gonna work. So I might change my mind about this, but the hypothesis was, hey, I see a lot of times, and we're going to see more here, where we get a lot of momentum, like a big push like this. It happens relatively fast. It pushes us away from what the balance area was. And then the sellers show up aggressively and try to defend it. They try to beat it, right? And they lose, only to see the market go that direction, right? And that was super infuriating, right? Like I would be, let's say I was bearish, and then they bounce back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I'm like, when is this finally gonna break down? And I get frustrated, right? And maybe I'd take some of the, in this case it's balanced, so you can just take all of these orange and all of these stars, more or less, and get, oops, sorry, that didn't point to the right bar, and get pretty good sells as long as you're bearish here out of this area. This one's the best because it interacted with this location, but we had a voodoo range here too, right? And I know there's lots of lines over this, and it's harder to do in retrospect, and I've got all these things drawn and stuff. Here, we'll erase some of this. Erase lines and erase volume profiles. Okay. And there we go. So if you identified earlier and you're like, hey, this looks pretty bearish, like here, right? And you're like, I think it's going to go lower. Okay, cool. When do you get short? That's the challenge, right? You can know I want to be short this market, but if you wait until you get that confirmation and you're like, finally I know we're dropping, so I'm going to get short like right here, right? And your target is like, I don't know, down here somewhere, and it goes a little bit, and you're like, finally my trade is working, I'm going to hold. Maybe you take some profits here and then you want to hold some runners. You need to know when to hold those runners and when you're actually participating in the capitulation, or you're trading directionally when we're actually quite balanced, right? So for instance, look here, we can literally do this one at a time. You're like, okay, I think it's bearish. Here's a sign of aggression. I'm going to short it. Cool. You got a nice trade. Some people make the mistake of holding a runner here, even though they got a very, very late aggressive entry. That runner then fails. Some people make further mistake of adding to their trade on this aggressive selling bar, and that trade full stops, right? And it's frustrating because it's like, okay, wait, I was told I can sell yellow stars and orange bars, and as long as it's bearish, it's going to work. And it's like, well, yeah, it's going to work 70, 60% of the time, but if you can improve that, if you just know not to be aggressive when there's signs that capitulation has already happened, or that momentum has disappeared, right? And so if you can figure out some signals of what it looks like when momentum has disappeared, for instance, for me, it's when we used to be getting this purple background. So we have purple background, purple background, purple background. This one's a better example. So see how you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with some form of purple background here, right? We then attempt to defend that level. We don't want to buy here. It's very aggressive, I should say, to buy this. Very aggressive. You're not going to get through this on one try most of the time. So this is very aggressive. But if I can retake this area where they got aggressive, here, if we can get above that and develop volume above that after taking the liquidity, or sorry, that's the other way. So yeah, that's the first one. If you want to get, I confused this. I was getting into the bullish. So let's talk about the bearish first. You want to join the trend, right? You think it's bearish, you want to join the trend. Not fighting the trend's a little bit of a different hypothesis. So here's the buyer that tries to buy, right? And if you were selling here, you'd be like, great, I got my opportunity to trap somebody who got long aggressively at the lows, and now I've got an aggressive seller following through. I'm going to sell. Fine, no problem with that. Just make sure you take profits. Same thing here. Fine, get 10 points, get out, right? Once you've gotten that move beyond this guy, this aggressive seller who just attacked this dude who came running at him with a knife, right? Like he literally was this buyer here is facing like a line of muskets, right? Or machine guns or whatever. And just like comes running like kamikaze style into the line of fire, right? Yeah, I'm going to take that shot. Sure. But you have to realize that when this doesn't continue, when there's no more momentum here, you can't just keep firing your weapon, right? Otherwise you will get beat. And you'll probably get beat right before a really good move, right? So instead, take this one if you want to be aggressive, sell this, get 10, 15 points, get out the moment the purple goes away, or that you see a sign of buyers. These blue arrows are new ideas of mine for signs that buyers are actually absorbing here, okay? And so this is actually a sign that if we can take this level, we can get long, which is here. Or here. But let's go to that later. But for this one, it's just, hey, I want to be short here aggressively, but I should not be holding runners. This is capitulation, right? We had 6 purple here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purple here. Momentum is decreasing, right? And yet we're going lower. As soon as that's apparent, assume that every aggressive seller here, this guy and this guy, they're going to get their stops hit. The liquidity behind those sellers is going to get collected before you get any continuation. And it doesn't only have to happen once. It's not like you can just put your sell order here and just wait to get filled, right? It can be one time you get one, 2 times you get one, right? It can take multiple tries. But the good news is you know already that as long as I can get above this gray box and then reverse back under it with signs of aggression, or into it with signs of aggression, that this is a reliable short. Hold on. Again, sorry. Real quick. Hopefully no one else is having issues with technical stuff, right? I hope someone can confirm that. That would be helpful. Someone was having trouble. I think they were trying to get into the other one, and you guys got to use the most recent link, so I apologize that we had to have to. But yeah, so like we'll see this when we do the review too, but if you just look at this gray area, I want you to just count how many times you could have waited for the liquidity, how many points I should say you could, like, even if you miss this aggressive trade, right? Let's say you miss this and you're like, wow, I really want to be short, but I missed that. Damn. Don't short this. Don't short that. The momentum is decreasing, right? When momentum is decreasing, if you want to join the trend, you need to wait until those aggressive traders who got too aggressive there get stopped out. You need their liquidity to get taken, which happens here. Now we have another signal here that gives me more confidence, and that's this pink background that only showed up for one bar, and even better on a pink bar with the up triangle, which in and of itself generally creates nice rotations if you beat them like this. But the location of this one is perfect. It's at a voodoo range level, right? We traded above the voodoo range level. We found 0 buyers up here, right? Someone aggressively defended, tried to break it. They found no follow through. They collected this liquidity and turned it around. This sell is very aggressive. It worked nicely, right? This sell is very aggressive. It worked okay. This sell is way too aggressive. This sell is actually conservative because we waited for the liquidity to get taken and for these buyers here to get trapped, right? They thought that they had momentum developing and they were wrong. That is where the opportunity is. I can be okay taking 0 trades other than that one trap trade, which we call a trap back in the room, and make really good money almost every day just with that one trade. I also don't need all these colors to take it. I'll show you. If you do the exact same thing here, okay, here's our, where is he? What time is that? Just to make this easier. 11. Okay, so here's the wave into the low, I believe, maybe. Or at least, so there's clearly there's bearish momentum, right? So could you just short every star? Yeah, you can, right? And it'll work. Could you just short every red triangle? Yeah, as long as there's enough momentum, you honestly can do pretty good there, as long as you take them all, right? The problem is eventually one of them is going to fail. That's just the way the market works. Eventually someone gets fucked, right? So this guy gets fucked, right? This guy also gets fucked, right? So if you're like, okay, I mean, maybe you're just so aggressive that you just keep taking them till you lose. That's okay too. My boss, my coach does that quite a bit. He's like, look, this is working. I'm just going to keep doing it with, and decrease my size as we get further and further, and eventually one of them's going to stop, and then I'll know to stop. Cool. I'm not that aggressive, right? But if you took this one, and this one, and or this one, and there's no algo signal here, but there should be. It's just not added to this chart book, but this is a sign of a volume shift. So here we have these guys are likely now to get traded behind, right? So another way to look at this is you could say, all right, I'm willing to take, like here, this is the most aggressive guy, right? Let me paint him here. This is your most aggressive short who has yet to get stopped out. And when I say stopped out, I mean the market traded behind him, right? So in this case, it's above. And like this guy got stopped out, or the market traded, this buyer got stopped out, and the market traded behind him down there, right? But he's traded against momentum, so it does this concept does not apply. But for the shorts here, because the momentum is to the downside, we have a heavy aggressive seller participating way below the average true range channel, right? And it's not surprising that one of these guys is going to get stopped. This one technically did too. So once he gets stopped, which actually happens right there, right? And then certainly once he gets stopped, which happens right there, right? Once that occurs, and certainly if it continues, right? So once that occurs, we have to stop taking aggressive shorts, right? We need to dial back how aggressive we're being with the trend, because this momentum has clearly decreased. Now, the problem that I experienced with trading with this chart is that I didn't know that until I got stopped out once or twice. So and then I might not have been aggressive enough up here, or I got like short like here and then got out here, right? And so I got a nice trade, but it kept going. And so then I'm like, okay, wait, I guess I will short this one. And then that one gives me 10 points, and then the runner stops. And I'm like, well, that sucks. I didn't get very many points for being right. So what I've done with mine is I've added these extra colors and stuff to basically say, you can short here, it's bearish, but realize that once we start getting momentum decreasing, stop shorting aggressively and instead wait for the conservative short. What's the conservative short? It's after we get behind above some of these guys, right? Which happens here, and then this one gets beat here and here, right? Once this happens, now it's more conservative to short a sign of aggression. Because think about it, if this is the same guy, if the guy selling aggressive or like following, if there's one dude, a lot of times the market makes more sense if you simplify it. So let's imagine that there's one buyer and one seller just fighting against each other, maybe 2 and 2 or whatever. You've got a guy selling here and he adds here, right? He sells on stars. That's all he does, right? And then maybe there's a guy selling orange bars. Okay, he sells here. Well, the orange bar guy gets beat. He's like, damn, that sucks. I lost. The star bar then gets beat. He's like, oh shit, I lost too. Well, this star bar guy gets beat too, right? So all of a sudden, the shorts are all losing, right? The most aggressive shorts are all losing and potentially trapped down here. So does it make sense to be aggressive and short now? No. But if you see someone come back in, and even though they're all getting beat, if immediately after this occurs, this liquidity here gets taken up, right? If immediately after that, the guy who literally just got stopped out is like, nope, I'm coming back for more, this is actually a great place to short, which is counterintuitive, right? You wouldn't want to short this, or I wouldn't short this, because they literally are getting beat bad. But I will short as soon as someone else shows some aggression there. Because what I'm seeing is, in the face of all this selling, all these sellers getting beat, they are selling anyway, right? Does it mean the low is going to get broken? No, but it means I'm probably going to get 10 points to the downside before I get 10 points to the upside. So I can short this one. Now, does that mean I short every orange bar? No. The orange bars need to be right after liquidity gets beat, right? Gets taken. So this one is a great short. Sorry about more noises. I'm by Air Force Base, so we hear the fighter pilots every once in a while. This short, there's no liquidity here, right? There's nobody who got, like, the way that the market structure is, this guy is not positioned to take advantage of anyone, right? Because this bar didn't take any shorts out. To take shorts out, we now have to trade up here, right? So if you got short here, you can hold your runners, but I'm not adding to my short here. I'm not even thinking about taking another short unless I get up here, which is funny because that's actually where I'll get stopped had this not worked, but it worked, right? So now we continue, and you can see in this case, this liquidity was not taken up, and you had an aggressive short opportunity here that I probably would not have taken. Gets you a couple points. Okay, now this initial short here, who got plenty of opportunity to take 10 or 15 points off the board, right, gets stopped out there. Okay, now if I didn't want to take this short because I wasn't aggressive enough, now I can start looking for short opportunities. But look, there's pink in the background. That pink is getting bigger. We had 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? With this, I might not notice that it's starting, that like this one looks pretty good, but I might not notice here, right here, that this is starting to look pretty bullish. If you can, great. You don't need all these extra signals. But had I gotten this bar to be a seller, I might have actually taken that and probably lost. So thankfully there wasn't a sell signal here, right? But we did get one here. So here, I'll show you. So this right there, right? If you just have this, you might think that that's a pretty good sell. You sucked up liquidity, went a little higher, and reversed back through that liquidity. See how that if you mark off where the liquidity was taken, it's this guy here, right? And we got back into, already got the arrow, into that zone after traveling above it, right? So on the face of it, that looks like a pretty good scalp. They work often without any extra filtering, right? What I see here is balance followed by momentum up to the upside, breaking to a new high. So I am now fading that move, and I have to ask myself, do I want to fade this? The only reason I would want to fade this is if I had a higher time frame reason to. Well, in this case, you might, because you actually trapped these guys up here. This star and this diamond got trapped up there on a higher time frame, and as soon as they got back into their area, they rejected, right? So this one works despite the filtering. So in my case, I may have missed that had I not been paying attention to the higher time frame, and anybody trading with just the simple algo would have gotten it, right? So there's times when being more conservative using filters actually makes you miss good trades. But for every time that happens, I'm actually like this one actually worked pretty good, right? But for every time that this happens where I miss this, I'm actually getting like 3 of them where they don't work. And that's simply because we traded above, we increased in volume. So trading above liquidity and turning around is not necessarily a sign that they're failing. The only time it does work, and like I said, I have considered trying to build this into this pink background, and I just haven't figured out how yet, is that if you have someone trapped here earlier and like you're bearish on the higher time frame, you can be aggressive basically. So even though it's a very aggressive trade, you can be aggressive because higher time frame is bearish. Now this is a sign that you should be buying because you have just one purple here, suggesting that they're trying to build bearish momentum, and then all of a sudden they come back and absorb it and hit buy, right? And notice we had buyers showing up here and here. They traded below or behind them, got momentum, and immediately rejected with this green bar. It's the exact same thing as this, just in reverse. So if you were aggressive to take this one and you thought it was bullish, you gotta take this one, right? In my case, I'm potentially taking this one, but I wouldn't probably take this one because it didn't actually get behind this. It's just an aggressive buyer showing up when I know there are trap buyers up there, right? But when both of these get traded behind and I see this momentum try to get in and get trapped, in other words, we get above the sellers there, that's actually potentially a good trade to hold long runners with, right? Will it always continue higher? No. But oftentimes you'll see it actually push at least up to that top of this channel. It would be the normal target, which occurred on this bar here. So that one would hit target. So came back, bounced off a double bottom, and then this just becomes choppy, right? So let me pause it real quick, guys. Let me go grab a drink. I'm going to come back and do the review now that I've kind of explained what that's the primary algo that I'm testing. There's also one more, which is this arrow, and that's a sign of absorption. When it's going, I'll show you. It'll show up, and we'll look at that too. But we're also going to look at the trades that are setting up based on just these signals, which are the more higher odds ones that are figured out. So give me 1 minute, guys. I'll be right back. Just hold on a second. live screen. Okay, well, not live anymore. We're going to look at a little bit of the overnight, but primarily the regular trading hours. Most of you guys probably trade. I want to real quick peek at the higher time frame and show you how we'll use the overnight as an example of how using the exact same signals here as I'm using for the intraday, I can actually see some bigger picture things with a higher time frame. Like I said, it's the same exact thing. It's just all the signals are the same. It's just that the Renko bars are wider. So the market needs to move further one direction or the other before it prints one of these bars. Now the problem is it means that there's that would be very difficult to trade these signals because each one of these bars, if you look here, like this one, here, where's the one with the actual, is it this? I thought one of these has the level on it. Yeah, so this one is 11,306 and it goes to 11,352, right? So I mean, unless you want to have 45 point stop, 44, 45 point stop, you're not gonna be able to trade signals on here. But what I can do is I can use the higher time frame as a identifier of conditions, right? So like is it bearish, is it bullish, is it balanced, like phases of the market, and I can use the same interpretation as I would of the smaller time frame, but and that can help me identify areas of interest. So a good example of that is overnight. Well, actually into the close. So yesterday, Monday, the close, you can see we were bearish on the higher time frame, right? We had one bearish, bearish again, bearish momentum is identified in my algo by this background purple, right? So one bearish bar, right, which they tried to beat, that was followed by 1, 2, 3 bearish bars, right? The purple, the bearish momentum, they tried to fight it, and that was followed by 1, 2, 3, 4 bearish, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bearish bars in a row, right? So the number of bars with a purple background, I know the colors change a little bit based on conditions. I haven't quite perfected this, optimized it, but I just want to show you that the purple in the background, right, which is the indicator, the number of bars that are purple in the background increases as price goes down. See how this low is here, this low is a lower low, this low on this rotation's a lower low still. So if all we saw, was this, our expectation should be that it's bearish and that momentum is increasing as we drop, right? We can also look down here at the accumulated volume, and accumulated volume basically shows that every one of these rotations, right, up or down, we're adding the volume of each bar to the total of that rotation. So here, for instance, it's a little hard to see. I think it goes higher than that. Yeah. So this one, these 2 bars here, actually had more buy volume than this one. This one, we don't see that one yet. So either of these had lower buy volume than these ones, right? For the sellers, we can see that this little sell wave had less volume than this one, and this one had less volume than this one, right? And then this one had less volume than this one. So volume was increasing as we dropped, and momentum was increasing as we dropped. That's bearish, generally, right? On a higher time frame, it is bearish. So if you saw that developing and you were trading this time frame, that ends at 1445. So let's go back to let's say 1400, like around here. So you can see the purple starts right around here. We had one, and then an attempt to break through, and a failure, right? So once we see this failure here, right, we might, because normally if it's just one bar like this, one bar, especially if it's at the bottom of the channel here, but if it's one bar followed by one bar that's purple followed by no purple, usually you're going to get a rotation back to the upside. But if it's purple, 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 or if you get one bar purple and then follow the attempt at a break to the upside that fails, it's probably not. There's buyers trapped up there basically. So here we had an indication on this time frame of increased buy momentum, right? The pink in the background was increasing. But we got up to this area of liquidity where there was stops up there, and they just gave up, which happens. They just give up. So I might not have gotten short here. I did have a red outline, but that's not enough. It's just an indicator that I'm potentially going to introduce into here that sometimes is a sign that you can be aggressive. So like here it's saying like even though there's momentum coming up here, it's probably a good spot to short. And there's a green one on the opposite side. This green outline here is like as long as you're not counter trend trading, you could probably take a scalp. Although when you're counter trend, they can actually set up when they get beat, they can set up momentum trades too. But it's not quite optimized yet. So but here we have you can see that you've got bullish momentum suddenly decreasing and then increasing on this one. And so I would not most likely have shorted this because it looked like we were trying to build some momentum. But on the higher time frame, it looks like this, where there's one bear and then an attempt to break out, which is usually a good sign for bulls, but then it fails, right? So once this fails to go any higher, and especially when you get under this low, it goes right back to what we were talking about earlier. It's a sign that we're probably bearish, but it's not the time to get in. Again, it's a sign that we're probably bearish on a higher time frame, but it's not the time to short, right? You have to have two separate, like you almost have to differentiate in your signaling and in your interpretation, which is why I use the signals because it's confusing otherwise, of is the condition short, right? Is it bearish, or is the timing and location and criteria correct for a short? And in this case, all of that is not there, but the momentum appears to be going to the short side, and there's probably trapped buyers up here. So once you see that, what you can do is identify the trapped traders, which are these stars and the diamonds and green bars. So we can just say like these guys, right? And we can say, look, if we can continue to hold, if sellers can continue to hold this area, and we see aggressive sellers come in, like on these algo signals, that we could have an opportunity for a sell. So I would rather take this sell than this one personally, even though it didn't actually, I don't know, maybe it did work. Did it continue to work? Yeah, okay, and then this one's okay too. But it's not perfect. This one you need momentum. To get that one, because there's a rule in the room that if the bar you want to enter on is not in contact with the blue lines, right? That you're probably trading in the wrong direction, right? So for instance, if you were getting a signal here to get long, right? It's not at the bottom of the channel in contact with this blue line. So chances are, even though you might get a few ticks, you're trading in the wrong direction. You should be looking for shorts up here, right? Well, this one's right in the middle. It's not contacting the lower one, and it's not contacting the higher one. So the only way you can short this is if you think it's got momentum behind it. So how would you know you have a momentum behind it? Well, if you just made it a high, right? Which who's got the highest high? It's this one. It's this one. So if you just made a high, you can measure the volume profile of just the up wave of that move, and it'll give you a high volume area, which we're going to mark like so. Okay, it's almost exactly where all the traders got trapped, which makes sense. We'll take away the old one and keep the new one. Oh my goodness, that cat, I tell you. Okay, so we now know that on the way up, really nobody committed to the trade here. Like people bought, but nobody aggressively pushed. Come here then. Come on. Come here, cat. I'm not chasing you. No one committed here with aggression, whereas they started to come in here with much more aggression, right? So it might look bullish at that time. Come here. Come here. Sorry. So it might look bullish at the time, but the problem is once you get under him, under those trap traders, right? Again, I talk about like it as him because I think about it like it's just one guy making a decision because it kind of makes my decisions, my logic easier to explain. But see how here we've developed volume below it. Now you can double check and see where the volume was coming off of the high. So here's the high. This is the volume draw, and you can see it's right here. It's still inside there, right? So all the volume on the way up, and when they tried like off of the high, right, which is usually where they kind of try to like absorb, the buyers are absorbing there. All the volume is in this area. And like I said, I marked the entire high volume node, but you could even say like it's primarily between these two lines, right? Like that if what I'm trying to show you is that if you can get volume developed below that, and if you can develop volume below that and then get a sign of aggression to the sell side there in that zone, it's actually a very, very, very reliable place to get short. So we'll see if that sets up here in a minute. But so here's the volume getting developed below, right? And that's when I said it looks to me like it's getting bearish, right? Momentum is shifting from going up to going down. We've got multiple purples in a row. Now, the market never makes it easy, right? Someone aggressively tries to save this, but we know, because we've been watching the chart, that there are trapped buyers up here. So what does that mean? We're probably going to go up into that area and then reject out of it, right? So if we can find a seller to follow, we should do so. Right there. So that should be our sell. Now, is it going to work? I'm not actually sure. I believe it does. I think we did see this, that it does work. If it didn't work, and instead we traveled up here and then went again, I would actually try it again as long as it sets up with another sign of aggression. Now, this sign of aggression is not going to be found on Simon's charts. This is something of my own that I'm developing yet, but that would be the most reliable place to get 15 points. It's not a sign that this low is getting taken out, and it certainly can stop, right? But if you want to look for the spot up here, it's not going to be the high. It'll never be the high. But if you want to find the spot where it's most likely that you'll get 10 to 15 points, if you like took it every day in any condition, that is the trade, right? Find a high. If you're looking for a short, find a high, figure out where all the volume is in that high that went to it and came off of it. Wait until we can see if volume can get developed underneath it. Then on the retest, if you have an order flow signal that there's aggressive sellers defending that area, especially if it gets in contact with these high volume nodes like it did here, it's a pretty reliable short for 15 points. Now, sometimes you get a lot more than that. Note that if you miss this one, because you didn't have the signal, Simon's chart signaled here on this star. So Simon would be getting short right here, which is why I started talking about this, because that's the reason this is an acceptable entry, even though it's not in contact with this blue line, is that momentum is now to the downside. So we don't necessarily have to wait, in my opinion, until the bars contact this blue line. What I do want is I want bars to contact this shaded area, the white shaded area here. That's a more flexible, like a more liberal, channel that's gonna give me momentum entries. So not breakouts. I don't trade breakouts, but after a breakout. So if this was the breakout here, where the triangle is, I would like to trade the retest on any aggressive sellers that interact with this shaded area. So here and here. So I got an algo signal on those bars, right? And then this triangle is also okay, right? So any of those would be acceptable as far as like scalps go. It does not mean this low gets broken every time, but the potential is there for that to continue. But you can see here, we have no reason to think that we should be covering because we don't have a situation where like the purple in the background, this and this and this. Oops, I've got the wrong side of that arrow. Here we got 3 Here we've got 3. Here we've got 2. Okay, we only got 2. Now we should cover, right? Because the price is trying to go lower, but momentum is decreasing to the downside. So I may not get my cover until 11,364.75, right? And had I gotten short here, I would have just gotten my maybe what is that, 70 to 50, still 20 points, and then I'd take profit at probably 15, and then trail out the rest here at 64, right? So like adding another like 6 or 7 points. So it's not much of a trade. It's not always going to be a huge trade, but the reason why I'm adding signals is that I'm actually getting alerted to it way up here, right? And so my entry on this is 11,382, let's say, and so I just have to get to 72. As long as I can get to there, or like 60, like right around here, right? 67, that's a little too high. Like there, if I can get there, I can take that every single time as long as I can confidently get those 10 to 15 points. And this one actually gave me more than that, right? Whereas his, it did, but it was close. You have to be nimble, right? Now it doesn't mean that we're gonna go take these highs just because we got this slowdown in momentum. All it means is we're probably gonna need a little rest, right? And so Simon is not covering here. My coach does not cover here. My coach takes profits and then holds the runners until he gets stopped out. So if you're okay doing that, take this entry every time, right? Because you're going to get your 10 to 15 points often, and sometimes you're going to get 50 points because those guys are clearly trapped. The problem is that sometimes you're going to get stopped out by like 2 ticks, and then it's going to go down again, right? Simon, my coach, will actually just short this again. And I think that's the only thing you can do, right? If it takes out his stop and then immediately turns around with an algo signal like this, he'll just get in. Notice if I got short here, I've already hit my target, and I don't even care about this stop, right? And now if I want to consider getting in again, I can, right? But I don't even take the stop that way. But this one sets up as a trap because look, you've got the flag here. We talked about this earlier, but this is called a trap back in. We have this purple flag that gets a red extension. We traded above that red extension and then came back down and broke below it. This one is a purple bar, and that's even better. Or if the purple bar is behind it a little bit. But you want a purple bar in this rotation somewhere. That makes this trap have like a trap door effect, potentially. Otherwise, it can kind of get stuck. But if there's a purple bar up here, or here, I want a pink bar. It's this pink bar. I'm confused. So like this pink bar. So this trapping behind this is better than trapping behind this. But the fact that we have a pink bar here makes it okay. Because what it basically means is that we've trapped a buyer up here. Right? Who, and that sellers actually pulled their orders as it went higher. And then they came right back in and sold. So that's a sign of pretty extreme aggression in that case. Same thing happened here. Pink bar, algo signal of aggression, right? So whenever you get behind those, or if those are the ones that get behind a what's it called, a pivot or an apex, it's almost always a good sell signal. But notice here, it did not get to the blue line, but it got close enough, right? So even if you skipped this one and you didn't have an algo signal here, and you didn't know the trick with the volume profile and all that, high volume node, this is a valid entry. It should be, right? Simply because it trapped behind this one. Even if you don't have these algo signals. You don't even need the algo signals. You just need to know that there's a pink bar. I guess you need that algo signal. And then you had an apex that we trapped back out of and then came back down. Again, is it going to break and just fall forever? No, but it's probably going to get you 10 to 15 points, and it does. But if you think about it, if I took this one, got my 20 points, got out, right, or trailed out my runners, I could then re-get in here and get another 15 to 20 points, right? And my day could be done now if I wanted to, right? So notice how all the momentum, there's no more purple, right? The purple just kind of went away. It went 3, 3, and then 2 bars, and then just gone. So what should we expect here? Probably balance. Probably balance. And so how do you trade balance? You wait for these traps. So I want red lines or green lines to get broken. That's the easy way to think about it. and then if the other team turns around and tries to take that level back, I can follow them, right? I'm not just going to buy this though, because there's no aggression here. I need an order flow signal, right? So in this case, if you identified early that you were bearish, and you either sold this, or this, right? You could hold runners, and you never got stopped, right? So those runners would continue. This on its own, the purple bar, it's actually a purple bar that's orange, right? It almost contacted this area again. So I would, and we've already defended it. So had I missed this entry, I'd actually take this short, personally. It does contact this white shaded area, and momentum is clearly lower. But I would expect to be getting out as soon as we broke this. So I would be getting out right here. Even though it might go lower, I would just get out because I expect balance here. But I know that the higher time frame is bearish, so it's going to be easier to take the bear moves. So here we have a trap back in. So see how you got a green line? We went down. Now it's even better because we had one purple bar, and or one purple background, and that's all, right? So they tried to increase momentum, and they failed. They came right back, and the buyers are defending here. And we got an algo signal that there's someone aggressive in there, right? So on the footprint, you'd be able to see there's an aggressive buyer attacking here. So now I can buy, right? So my entry's here, and my target is this blue line here, or else at least somewhere in this shaded area. I'd probably go ahead and take most of my profits at the voodoo range level because those are really hard to beat. So I'd be out right there, and I'd miss this, right? I'd miss this bar, and I'd be out here. Now you can see this is the next one we want to target. Okay, it got broke, and it came right back in with a sell signal. Guess what? You can sell that, right? And so already you've gotten like 20, 20, 15, 20, 20, 15, right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, probably 100 points. And it's been an hour, right? Even if you just took the bears and you skipped the bull, you still got over 50 points. And even if you just took 15 points every time and didn't even get the runners, you've at least got 30 points. So, I mean, just the mean reversion strategies itself makes it basically, it's paid for the algo for me very quickly. Because the algo, having the algo on my desktop costs $250 a month. Well, with 100, and even if you're only trading one contract, right? Every NQ contract, every point in NQ is worth $20. So we're talking $200, $300 for every trade. And we just got like 6. So like 6 months of my membership, which includes the daily coaching and all the other members and stuff like that, like being in there in the Slack, it's paid for in like in a single in a trade, So it's, people complain about like paid services, but it's like, look, if it pays for itself, does it? And then it, like on a regular basis, are you really paying for a service, or are you just like participating in something that, I don't know. The way I see it, like I don't complain about buying other stuff that I value, because it there's a lot of examples, right? Let's say you're an Uber driver and you're going to complain that you had to pay for your car to drive Uber, right? And it's like, well, but you make money. Do you make enough to pay for your car? Yeah. Do you make more than that? Okay. Well, business decision wise, is probably a good idea, right? Like just looking at liabilities and assets, if it's making you more money than you're spending on it, then yeah, you're paying for it. But like without it, I don't make that money. So I'm better off with it than without it. I don't really care that I have to pay for it. In fact, it probably could be more expensive, and I'd still pay for it. Don't tell Simon, but it's true. So anyway, yeah, that's a long, and then this is the short. See the algo signal here. You got a star here too if you were late. 2 opportunities to get 10 to 15 points. And again, I don't want you to think too hard about what these all mean. Just know that when you see them in the right location, and if you've analyzed the situation right, like in here I said, it's probably looking like it's balancing out. So I should be looking. That way I know which type of signals to look for, which type of patterns to look for. As long as you understand that, which takes time and some coaching, once you learn, you're going to be able to basically take all those trades anytime they signal, right? And then how conservative or aggressive you want to be is up to your own personal preferences. So now remember, this one gave us that sell signal, and so if you had held runners this entire time, which once I see this, I'm not going to do. I treat this, for those in the room, I treat these single purple bars here, these purple backgrounds, exactly like a single purple bar. Right? So this purple bar followed by a diamond, or like this purple bar followed by a green bar, purple bar followed by a diamond. This might as well be a purple bar followed by a star, which is a great signal or pattern all by itself. Right? We see that work all the time. And like pink bar, diamond works a lot, you know. So it's recognize that like that I can, if you're getting confused about how to see that, that's one way to think about it, is if you get one of those purple bars or a pink one, and especially when it's all by itself or it's getting smaller compared, so there's 3 and now there's less than 3, right? Then even if this actual bar wasn't purple, I'm assuming that I'm thinking about it like a purple bar. So we get purple bar, green bar, or purple bar diamond here. Now it did not take this out, right? But I bet if we measure this, and we don't have this automated yet, but eventually it will be. So there's our wave down to this low, this high ends here. Okay, good. So they're together, right? So now we can draw the high volume nodes. So both of these start around here, and then they both end about there. So as long as I have an aggressive buyer, if I develop volume above, which happened, develop volume above it, both of them, right? And then I come back and I defend with an aggressive buyer that interacts with these levels, I can buy it even if it's not interacting with the blue line. Now in this case it is interacting with the blue line, so it's totally fine to buy anyway. But without getting under this low, it's only like a 60% win rate rather than a 68 or whatever it is for the trap back in. Once you have this volume profile draw and this interaction with the volume build and all that stuff, it goes way up to like 75, almost. It wasn't quite 75 last time we checked, but it's high. So that is probably, this is the best trade of the Globax, right? And it wasn't hard to find, you just needed to know what to look for. Okay, this is a new signal. Sorry this is going kind of long, guys, but I'm more doing this for myself, honestly. This is very similar to like my journaling process. And so if you're not getting anything out of this, you can leave. But if you're curious about how this works, it's more for me than anything else, but also just to demonstrate that like these signals like work on a regular basis. So these arrows here, I promised I'd talk about them, right? So the yellow ones are technically bearish and the blue ones are technically bullish, right? It's looking at basically these indicators along with some other information. I've developed it myself. When I see the arrows on a bar that closes in the wrong direction, right? In other words, this is a bearish signal, but it's closing on a bullish bar. And then this one is a bullish signal closing on a bullish bar, right? So when they're in the wrong direction like this, what I'm watching for is I want to get above this channel, right? All these lines, the middle, the channel, you'll see most of the volume goes off inside these channels. And in the tightest channel is these shaded lines, these 2 shaded areas. And literally the majority of the day's volume happens inside of there, right? So when it's balanced, you can just like sell above it and buy below it and it works pretty good. But if you are not balanced, it doesn't work anymore. Then you'll be fighting a trend, right? Well, even if you're trending, sometimes it works. And I wanted to know why. So I built the signal with the idea that the way it should work, and again, I haven't had it thoroughly forward tested, but the back test is working great. I just need to make sure that the forward test without any further filtering, because there might be some situations where it doesn't work, so I don't know yet, which is why I have it on the chart so I can watch. But when we have an arrow that's pointing, that's coming on the wrong, of a bar that's the wrong direction, so it's a bearish arrow, yellow. All my yellow stuff is bearish, if you'll see, and all the blue is bullish. But the yellow on a bull bar, if it occurs above this channel, what it basically means is that this move is exhausted. You can also get confirmation down here, the orange should be interacting with the red line here. That red line is like the exhaustion line. It does not mean you should not immediately sell this. That's not what it means. Don't just sell. You will get taken out, right? What it does mean is that once you get a sign of aggression in the direction that the arrow is telling you, right? So in this case, it's bearish. And especially if that sign of aggression occurs above the channel, that you're at least going to return to this level and probably lower, right? So in this case, we got 1, 2, 3 more bars above, and then we had this bearish signal, right? So the short is here, but I knew I was looking for a short as soon as I got that bearish signal. I knew that I was looking for a short all the way 4 bars earlier at this yellow arrow. So that's important to understand, is that, again, and this is what I've said before, is even if you're not going to follow our system, you're going to build your own, you need to have 2 pieces of information figured out for every signal. You need to know, when does it apply, what conditions does it apply, and where is the trigger, right? Well, the condition for this short is once you've gotten the yellow arrow and you turn around and see a bearish bar, the signal to actually get short is a sign of aggression, which is a star, a diamond, or an orange bar in this case. So here you get short there, and we know, or we're confident that we're going to trade back to the low of this, or at least the point of control. So I would be getting short here, and then taking profit on any sign of bullish aggression here. So no bullish aggression there, no reason to cover here. So anytime they want to, well, yeah, now it's, so once we can see how this was red, was pink, or whatever, and the very next one was not, in fact, it's a purple bar, that's extremely bearish. Like someone tried to buy this and got absolutely steamrolled, right? So if I hadn't covered yet, like, I mean, I almost want to add here. It's not a good idea, but this is the kind of signal that you get when breakouts work, right? But you can see how we got overextended here, identified by the arrow. But if you would have shorted here, you'd stop out and then see it go without you. And that's what was happening to me before I made this signal, is that I was missing these huge capitulation moves. And I realized that a lot of times, well, sometimes you get a huge capitulation move. Other times what you tend to get is an extension, overextension, and then a rollback into like wherever that overextension started, right? Wherever this overextension started is where you'll sometimes see buyers show up, right? You got a little wick here, but it didn't really do anything. And it definitely did not get over this channel, right? So it got stuck in the channel. They tried to buy it, ran into sellers, and immediately sold off. This all happened in a matter of a minute, right? So you'd short here. You'd have to hold through a little bit of heat. Your stop would go on above the high here. And really, I want to take profits the moment I see any sign of aggression. So, I mean, once you get under this, it could jump at any time. So maybe I'd sell some here on this little bounce. If this like paused and I got nervous, I might sell some of that there. But really, I want to take this low out here, right? Otherwise, I'm just going to wait till I see aggression right there. So now I've gotten my target. I've gotten the low out, and I don't see any purple background. So if anything, I got pink background, right? So someone tried to buy with momentum, but nobody's really following through with this move with momentum. Yes, they are selling it, right? But we're not seeing people pile on over and over and over, like with more and more and more aggression, which is what you'll see if you've got multiple purple bars in a row. So in this case, if there's any sign of buyers showing up, especially at key areas, I'm just going to get out, because while it might not be a low, the chances that it bounces there are pretty high. But the target is basically these green lines always. So if I get here, I'm definitely taking some off, and then I've got another one here, and so anywhere lower than that, I'm definitely. So if I get another one right there, so I'd probably be out of the. If I took 2 contracts, I'd be out of the trade there. But think about it. I said I'd already have. If I hadn't traded overnight, which I didn't because I was at work at the clinic, but if I was home and trading in Globex yesterday, I would have been able to get short at 94, and then let's say conservatively getting out at the green line, let's say, like 29, right? So even if I like panic sold at 34, that's 60 points added on to like already a 100-point day. And I hadn't, this is like the first big trade I even caught. All the rest of them were like 15, 10, 20 points, right? But you can hopefully see how all you need to do is like shoot layups, and occasionally you will tumble onto, like, you'll get fouled eventually and tumble onto like a 4-point opportunity, right? Or in this case, a 60-point opportunity. So now look, they put some aggression in here. See that? We got momentum coming down, and it's 3 in a row. Last time, you can always look to the left and see, well, how many did you have last time you saw the purple? We only had 1 last time. So what this is telling me is aggression to the downside is increasing as price is dropping. That is a sign not to be aggressive to the bull side, right? They did get a little bit extended here, so it's not. I'm not surprised that we're going to get a little bit of a relief. But then you look at the higher time frame, and it's like, holy shit, there's a ton of aggression here, right? They are really pushing. 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Yeah, that's purple. So 4 in a row, right? 1, then 3, then 4. So they are increasing their momentum and aggression to the downside as they drop. That is not the situation you want to be aggressive to fade, right? Now, if you look here, accumulated volume for this was here, and we surpassed that right here. So as soon as that happens, right, and especially when that was identified as this high volume node here, when they lose that, it's over. Like, don't fuck with it, right? They've developed. Remember, we said they developed volume above it, and we bought this little bounce, right? Well, now they've developed volume below the high volume node. So guess what? If we come back up here and reject off of here, it's a good short, right? So we're going to leave it on there. And we're going to see if we can get a short. I would not buy this. Even the only reason to buy this is that you are so far from the channel that there's a good chance, like relatively high, at least 50%, that you're going to get back to that blue line. The problem is your stop has to go underneath this green line. So it's only like a 1-to-1, but you might be far enough down that makes sense. So right there, I would just be out, right? So like if I had missed this move, I've caught myself like being aggressive here, and having the diamond and the green outline makes us a little more likely to work, because you potentially have trapped a trader here is basically what that's saying. The green outline and the diamonds both are trapped trader identifiers. So like here, you have a trapped trader here, which makes it go lower because it's the red diamond. Here, green outline, trapped trader here, you can go higher. Green outline, trapped trader here, you can go higher, right? But it's only in the immediate sense. And once you break them, so here, these trapped traders got basically released, right? Whatever shorts were active in the wicks of these bars, they were able to get out at break even. So guess what? If we come back to these levels, they'll short like that. So what I'm saying is, once you identify a green outline candle with my algo, and you take it to the right, any algo, if it's bearish, once you break below them, which, whoops, happened right there, right? And especially if volume is increasing, accumulated volume is increasing, right? Then you can expect that the first test back into that area is probably going to get defended. You just don't want to be the first one to do it. So I would wait for this bear bar to come in, right? I don't like the location. I'm at the bottom of the channel. It's super aggressive. But does it work? I bet you it does. See that? So if I'm going to take a break, that's the closest thing I'm going to take to a breakout, you guys. People always ask, like, why don't you break out trade? Why don't you break out trade? Because it just doesn't work more than like 30% of the time. But what does work, at least 50, is something like that, where you get the breakout here, you wait for a little bit of a relief rally back into the area that was support, and now it's turned resistance. So I know that's not a breakout trade, but that's the closest thing to a like breakout trade that I'm trading, right? I need the retrace to give me good odds, because otherwise what happens is I short here and I put my stop here and I get stopped out, and then it goes, and then I tilt, right? That's why I don't trade breakouts, because it looks like it works, but with leverage, I can't have more than a 15-point stop. I just won't do it. Like, I'm not going to lose $700 trading 2 NQ contracts, every, like, over and over. No, like, $700-800, like, is not something I can just, like, I'm not going to have, like, multiple stops in a row like that, right? Because all of a sudden I'm going to be down, like, 3K. Like I don't have the account size for that. Basically, is really the truth. So could I do it with 3 micros? Yeah, I could, but I make a lot more just trading NQ and being more conservative, right? Because in this situation, even if I shorted 3 MNQs, you think I'm going to cover for $20 here? No, I'm going to be greedy and cover it and hold it, and then when it comes back and stops me out, I'm going to be like, I guess in this case I'd have to put my stop like way up here, so I'd take all this heat, right? And it's like that's just I don't know, doesn't seem right. So here again, purple, right? 1 purple, 3 purple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purple, maybe more. We are not fighting this. I'm not fighting this. Okay. Oh look, here's that signal again, other direction. Blue arrow on a down bar, right? Very often suggests that this high is going to be retested because we've gone a little bit too far. See how this interacted with the purple? Or, I'm sorry, the red line on the bottom? It's a -5, right? This angle of a rate of change is just too intense, even for what I'm finding, even for the very, very strongest momentum. Once it gets there, it's not going to break out and go bullish all the time. But is it probably going to come back up and hit this channel? Yeah, probably. It's gonna do one of these again, right? So I don't want to just immediately long it, but just like what I did over here, only in reverse. Once I get the arrow, then the next algo signal I'm going to take, and if that one stops out, I'll probably even try it one more time if it triggers again. So there's the entry. Okay, I got a green outline indicating a trap trader here. If this stops out and it comes back with a star, I would take it again. Okay, and it gets me back through the top of here, right, into the channel. Okay, so I'd already know that if I see any sign of sellers here, I'm out. Right there, out, right? The moment I see that, I'm out. And so is it a huge play? No. But as we saw before, the potential's there for a really big trade. Here we're trading against momentum, but it still works for 04 to... Well, what I would have done is I would have taken, in this case, I would have taken profit as soon as we get back to this trap trader. Right? So this guy, we're trading against momentum, right? This guy was clearly trapped. So, right, because we got underneath him. And we had, he trapped him, and then he trapped him, right? So once we get back through that, anything up here, anything in the body of this, anything up here, I'm totally cool with. Yeah, that's beautiful. Like anything in this white bar, I will take half off at least. But this really is intended for a scalp, but sometimes they work really big if you're not fighting momentum. Remember here, the reason this worked so well was that there was no bullish momentum here. It was balanced. They just overextended to the upside during balance, and higher time frame was bearish, right? Perfect situation for holding runners. And this is what I was saying before. This is a perfect example of how an advanced trader is good at reading order flow and like understanding. You know, you can do this with a footprint or the DOM too, but with the algo, it makes this super simple. And now I see that we are clearly increasing in bearishness, right? This move might have been overextended, but my expectation should be come back to the channel because higher time frames bearish and I'm trading bullish, right? It's not balanced at all here, but I can still take this fade as a scalp and I can get my 10 to 15 points, right? Now, I personally am not selling this one. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. I don't have a great reason yet to sell this. The one thing I do have here that I marked here because I was looking at it overnight is I've got pink bars immediately followed by purple bars. And this is something see in the room, members, like the way we build these signals is members kind of come up with ideas on our own, and then we do our own testing and back test and share later. Once that back testing is confirmed to be meaningful, we'll then go back, we'll then share the idea, and if Simon likes it and everyone agrees, it'll get added, or those with more experience agree, it'll get added to the main algo, right? So one of the other members named Randy, no, it was Peter. Oh, I don't remember what it was. Sorry if you're watching it, I'm not giving you credit, but I think it was Peter. identified that when you have pink bars immediately followed by purple bars, or vice versa, purple bars immediately followed by pink bars, that area, that range, tends to become a pivot in the future. It doesn't have to be right away. It can be any time. So what you can do here is you can actually mark off. This happened to be 2 in a row, 2 pinks, 2 purples, but you can mark off this whole area. We're gonna make it. I already have purple. We will make it. That's POC. We'll make it red. Okay, so that is our pivot, and we're gonna see if this works. Technically, you could have taken here, but that's a breakout trade, basically, right? Because you're getting in when that closes, and it's breaking down underneath this guy who trapped this one and then got trapped himself. So I'm probably not taking that, but let's see if it creates a pivot later on, because it's something that I haven't used a lot of, but might. So here's that. We saw that move, right, where it came back up. It's this one. Sorry, I was talking about this as if it was this, but this is the buy. This is identifying that the buy is coming. This is the buy trigger, right? And I want to be out by this white bar, basically. So now look, we come back into the pivot and reject. So Peter could go ahead and sell that. Does it work? Yep. So see how now if you did it, you'd have to be okay with you'd have to be able to handle trading inside of the range. Your stop literally has to go above this, and he trades options to do this, but your stop has to be here. And so there's actually not a algo signal here. The better signal is this one, right? So in here, stop here. It's a little bit wide because it's 2 of them rather than 1 of them. So I don't know how he feels about that. If he uses the lower one or the higher, I don't know. But the concept is here, and the short is clearly here. Once you get the short, I believe you can move your stop inside of the channel, but I'm not sure. Or the pivot, but I'm not sure. See there, I'm pretty sure he just stops out there. Now, with my signals, what I see here, right there, is we had 1, 2, 3 purple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purple, right? Increasing momentum as they drop in price. Pretty bearish. We trapped this guy, which is what this arrow's saying, followed by a green bar especially, or a diamond, right? It doesn't have to be right away, but shortly thereafter. And getting over this high now creates a retrace, right? And it would not be surprising to see some balance here, or it could go lower. Well, when they try to push lower and they put 1, 2 purple bars, and the very next bar is not purple, right? In this case, it's actually a sign of aggression to the upside. And if you look, this one got a flag, a power bar flag, which creates a green line, and that got traded behind, and then an algo signal was printed in the other direction. This is actually a long for me. We have momentum decreasing, suggesting that we're going to get into a balance period, right? That's the first step, which is why I have the colors. But again, could you see that here? Yeah, you could see it. It's just harder to see. Here, what is it? 14, something like that. 18 tick, 40 tick. Here. So if you were just using Simon's, what you'd have to notice, again, you don't have the colors in the background, right? You just have to see this was really bearish. Now it's starting to stay inside the channel. There's a low. That low got taken out by about a tick. It came back in and gave me another sign of aggression. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can buy and get it up here, right? That's how it works with Simon's algo. With mine, I just have to look at the purple and say, wow, I've got a lot less purple here than I used to. And they were increasing in the number of purple backgrounds, and now they're not. So we might be getting some balance here. And what I really want now is to trade back to the top of the channel. That's ideally where it's going to go. So let's see right there. So I'm out of most of my position at that blue line, this blue line here. And what I'm now waiting for is a retest. If I'm thinking about getting long, I want to see it retest here to get long. And now the other thing you could do, we did it before, but I've been telling you guys, it's once you learn, you literally only need one of these, right? I've shown you like 5 different trades. You literally only need one of these, but let's do this one again. We made a new low. The volume for that low is way at the bottom, as is the volume off the low. What does that mean? As long as buyers develop volume up here, which they did, any pullback into that area can be bought, right? Now, technically, Simon says it's the POC. I personally think it's the volume build, right? So the high volume node. So that starts here, and it goes down to here. That means that this was a very good trade and probably has the potential to go quite a bit higher. But the chances that it's going to, when I say good trade, I mean the win rate to get 15 points on that, 10 to 50 points is high. 12 to 15 is really good. Hold on. We're not having any issues now, right? If someone can let me know that they can hear me and stuff, I think I'm just seeing stuff that was posted earlier, but someone mentioning that they were having trouble. But whatever. Like I said, I'm doing this more for myself as anything. But if anybody can't hear, let me know, and I can always turn it up. Okay, so primary target though, always blue line. Okay, always blue line. As long as it's balanced, I should say. Not always. If it's balanced, primary targets are blue lines, or else the red line here is always a good buy place to sell as well. Not to short, but to sell. Right? Where just like green lines, like this, are always a pretty safe place to sell. So we did definitely hit target there, and that's exactly what these POC wave POC trades are supposed to do. It's not necessarily going to go way higher. It does often break this, but it doesn't have to, right? But yeah, again, we traded to the low. We put volume at the low. We traded up. It's just established some volume above that high volume node. So when we went back and tested that POC, even though it missed it by like 2 ticks, it's good to go, in my opinion. So now look, we had purple decreasing, right? And now we've got a sell signal. Should I take it? In my opinion, no, I should not. Why? Because because momentum is decreasing to the downside. We've broken above all of these pivots, right? So if it was balanced, it could come back into here. But if it's getting bullish, it's going to rocket. The only real reason I would take this is if I thought there was a chance that we might continue lower. But I don't think there's a good chance because the purple disappeared. There's no more momentum to the downside. So in my opinion, even though, like I said, we're taught in the room that this is a valid sell and it's a decent sell, I'm filtering this one out with those color backgrounds. So it might look like a lot, but it saves me $300, you know? Now also, when you get star and or this arrow followed by a diamond like this is actually another spot where I will occasionally take a momentum breakout trade. It's the only really other spot, other than orange bar, green bar. I prefer when it's not at resistance, but when momentum is high, these work really well. Or when momentum is fresh like this, they can work. The problem is it can come up and peter out and roll over, and I get pretty frustrated because then I get stopped out near where I want to be buying. But if you're bullish, this is one of the better places to take a breakout, is that pattern. So now, see, my background, the pink background, didn't kick in until here, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would have had more confidence to take that breakout. So I might have to look into that and see if there might be a way to hit me in. But see how like this is starting to be, it looks overextended, right? So they're pushing hard enough where as long as that momentum continues, you can get overextended for as long as you want. You just have to keep building momentum. So if I did get long here, I'm not even thinking about selling it now that I see that pink background, even though it looks overextended. That pink background is giving me confidence. As long as that sticks around, I know momentum's to the upside, right? So where's my target? Well, now I'm starting to look higher up here, right? Which is far away, but that's the right idea. Oh, doesn't make it. The purple is what I wanted. Maybe it keeps going. Again, notice we have pink, 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 pink. No pink on this one. Pink on this one. No pink, right? So, and I know I have the arrow here, but it's going in the correct direction. So it's not. I don't have a super strong signal for that unless the next one goes higher. So here, with just one pink, because this one's not pink, this one being pink followed by an aggressive signal can be a good play if it's balanced or bearish. In this case, it does not look very balanced or bearish, but we do have a decrease in the background pink. So what I like to do is wait for this high to get taken out and then take the next aggressive signal. But this is technically a valid sell. Oh, there we go. So that is a sign that we're probably going to go higher, right? I don't know if we do. Yeah, because see, it's the same exact pattern. Arrow or star or orange bar followed by this diamond. It's just a sign that whoever tried to get aggressive here got totally fucked. And it usually gives you another push. So now I'm counting how many pink bars I get. It needs to be at least 2 because I only got 1 here. Okay, I got my 2. So now I'm not interested in shorting. Now I've got 3. So I'm not going to take that short. It might work. But because I went from 1 to 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm not going to take it. Now there is one reason to take it. And I'm still studying this. But if you see, these 2 pink backgrounds are actually different. One of them's light pink and one of them's dark pink. And when you have a dark pink that is immediately followed by a black or purple or no more pink, it's actually a pretty common sign that you're going to get a retrace. But you're probably pretty bullish it's aggressive. But you see how what usually happens is dark pink or bright pink, followed by light pink, followed by black, followed by light pink, followed by black, followed by light pink, right? Just like here, what you usually get is bright purple, then it goes away only to give you light purple. But when it's the bright color followed immediately by no color in the background, it is kind of a sign that they just gave up. I just don't know how often it works, and I'm not taking the trade for that alone, but it's something I've seen work before. So let's see what happens. Do they just bounce it? They come right back with pink after 2 offs. I bet you this keeps going. Oh, interesting. So now they've trapped above this, taken the liquidity, and shut down. This is the best trade compared to all of these. This is the best place to short. Like I said, I wasn't sure about this one. It didn't go very far. This one I'm confident with is going to work most of the time. That was close. Look at that. Does it hit me by a tick? So it probably gets 10 points or 12 points and then takes out my runners. And then I'd have to short again here because once again, now, look, you've got lots of pink, followed by a little pink, followed by 1 pink, right? And where's the liquidity? It was here, it got taken out. It was here, it got taken out by 1 tick. So now this one becomes even better than this one. So if you took this one, you got to take this one. If you took this one, you got to take that one. For that reason, I'm not taking this one as often, right? I need to be at a location that I thought we were going to see sellers at. Now here you can see that this old pivot, they're responding to that to the downside. So the one reason not to take this is that you might not have very, very good risk reward to the potential support, right? So if you skipped this one because of that, I would personally still take this. I don't know if it was right, but that's how I usually do. They do look like they want to bounce there, and they try and fail. So that's good. So at least that one clearly worked. Got us back into the lower quartile. It got through the orange shaded channel, and as soon as I see a sign of aggression, I'm out of that short, right? So, like, your runners might not pay much, but I definitely hit my 10 to 15 point target. But if you think about it, if you took this short and got stopped, and took this short and got stopped, you probably broke even taking all of them. So that's the problem with being so aggressive, is that even with the algo, if you're too aggressive, you can end up paying a lot in fees. And if you don't hold for the really big moves, it becomes very difficult to make money all the time, because sometimes you're just going to get hit with open drive higher, trend day up, and stuff like that. Whereas if you're a little bit more conservative, you can make money almost in any condition. they just bounced off this pivot here, right? So I've got a high. I could measure. This is a high, so I could measure here these, and this, and we can see that the volume build here is at the lows. Goes to here. So what I would need to see if I want to be a very confident short, right? If I want to be a bear for sure, like, and I want to get down into here, we need to develop volume below these lines, which happened here, I guess, for one bar. And then we'd have to come back up here and reject. So let's see if they try to set that up. Right there. Right, so we got one bar of volume with volume below this volume build, just barely, right? Retraced, and now we have rejection at that high volume node. It's a little bit aggressive, but I think this is a better short for sure than this one, because now we've gotten this push, and they're coming up and then trying to reject, I mean. So let's see if this works. Your stop has to go above that bar. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That works a lot. It's worked 100% of the time so far in the review. Okay, so now look, we got pink going away, likely balance. Now purple showing up. Guess what? Likelihood is we actually go lower, right? Because now we've got bearish momentum coming in. So, and then we can look at volume. We got a big bull volume, and then puny volume here, a little bit better here, and sellers had most of their volume right here, if not into this low. So we're probably balancing, but I would not be surprised if they try to reject this. This is a trap back in. If you think it's balanced, you broke this green line and came back with an algo signal. It's also got an arrow on it and a star. There's lots of reasons to think we'd come back up here, except for the fact that we trapped these guys, right? So it would be a scalp for me because it's going in the opposite direction than what I expect momentum to go in, but it's technically a valid trade. Right there, I'd be out. Yep. So it's a fine scalp as long as you know you want to get out, and see how it hits this shaded area and then rejects. That's the primary reason I have these shaded areas, is for profit taking during balance, because sometimes you just don't hit the blue line. Let's just be honest. Sometimes it just misses it by a tick, and so I've got that extra line of defense there. I might eventually get rid of the blue one and use just the shaded. I don't know. But notice here you have the exact same scenario as this one, right? But the problem is we haven't collected liquidity up there. So it's not technically as good as this one, but it is valid for a sell. Yeah, see, it's gonna chop around in here because it's gonna have to collect liquidity to get me interested. So we're either gonna have to get below here and now the purple increasing makes me very, very uneasy about buying. But what I'd prefer is get up here and then show aggression to the sell side. Let's see if I'm not buying that, by the way. I want a sell signal here. Interesting. We don't get one. Okay, let me just double check that I didn't miss something here. This is a low. We could draw the DVP. Did they? Okay, so where's this one at the low? Fuck, they're together. All right, so I missed this. It's worked literally every time so far. The high volume node starts here, and it's really like this. It's tight, right? So once you establish volume up here, if you get a pullback into this area and an algo signal out of it, it's a buy. This one just didn't set up. But even without the algo signal though, if you see volume developing at the lows like this, and they can't get back into it, it's probably not a great idea to think we can get through it, right? So this is one of those situations where it's kind of like a gap and camp, or gap and trap, some people call it, where you pushed up, you're trying to trap some sellers in here. They get a bunch of sellers at the lows, and they shoot off of them, right? So I thought that this was indicating we had more bearishness. But one thing I do notice that I didn't see before is we're not getting price below this one. So they're pushing with a lot of pressure here, but price is not going lower. We saw this at the end of the day, and I mentioned it. I just didn't pick up on it here. See, here you're getting you're getting price go higher, right? And momentum's decreasing, so you should expect some rest. Well, here, momentum, the pressures, the order flow signals of momentum are increasing here to the downside, but price is not breaking. So really, what I would expect is some kind of a retrace and then a dump, right? But right here, we stop being bearish. And if you look here, we got the exact same signal here, only in reverse, where we had one bright purple followed by no purple. So here it's one bright pink followed by no pink. And then here too, bright pink followed by no pink, right? This one got trapped back in, this one did not. But interestingly, what I might be looking for, what I might make this signal into is not to take the trade every single time, but what this and this have in common is it's bright pink, no pink when it's not at the high. See, so this one was a new high. It makes sense to have bright pink there. There should be a lot of pushing to get us to go any higher here. And so this pullback might not be much. They might chop you up here. But if you get a pink that's a bright pink that's not the high, right, which I can identify with these red lines. So basically, if there's a red line here, now see how here this red line already got broken, and there's no red lines that have started. I guess there's these though. I'd have to figure out how to identify that we're still in the same. I might be able to do it with the waves, but basically, if we're still in the same wave, right, and we're at the high of that wave, that signal to short when the pink goes away is not as strong. But when it's not at the highs like this, and the bright pink goes away, that's probably a really good short. So here, we're at the lows. This is just a scalp. Here, we're not at the lows, and bright pink goes away. That might actually be a very reliable signal. I will look for that. So see, now we're at the highs, and we're getting pink. So I'm not shorting that. I'm not shorting that. I don't care if it works. There's so many times when it doesn't that I'm not touching it. But yeah, I don't really see anything comment on there other than just don't fuck with it. Oh, I guess the one thing you could do is you could see where we could draw the bottom profile. It's a new high, right? So we could go in here. Oh fuck, did I just fuck it up? Okay. We could go in here, draw the DVP or DVP, draw volume profile. And you get, so if you wanted to be a buyer, you really want to buy in this zone. Like that. We want to see them defend that. We've gotten volume above it. And so we want to see them defend that. Right there. That's probably it. That's the one. Right there. Now if you missed it, you could draw this. And it basically says, well, we've already established volume above this, so if you can get a signal to interact with this high volume node, you might get a similar opportunity. So basically a pullback here. Yeah, that's a good buy, by the way. I like that a lot. That has worked literally 100% of the time it's set up. It just didn't set up here. It didn't reach far enough back to set up. But every time this is set up since overnight in this review, it has worked all through London. So that one worked. It just never pulled back into the other one. Note here, we've got more pink than this one. I am not shorting this. Not fucking touching it. No way. Now we've got less pink. See that? So more pink, less pink, and we got to trap back in. And like I said, even when we do have more pink, if we can develop an apex, trade above it, and trap back in with an algo signal like this, I will attempt to short that. But I'd have to be willing to take it twice. So that's the first time I can short. Oh, and pink ended, and we are at the high. But there's no bright pink. So it's just the trap back in here. Cool. Oh, and the trap back in had a yellow arrow. That's cool too. That there might be some meaningfulness there that the pink ended, and we had a yellow arrow, and there was a trap back in. I saw that earlier too. We'll have to see if that continues. It does. So that's a beautiful trade. This looks just like the one that happened here, right? Only here the arrow occurred early, giving you early warning. And here the arrow occurred right at the high and just immediately flushed. Now remember, these are still valid, right? But notice how this, oh wait, no they're not. We have a new low, we have a new high. So let's erase everything. We draw the new high. If you want to know when you can be bearish, or when you can have a high likelihood of a trade. Okay, so we got the volume was at the high. So now we should be thinking, even if we didn't sell that first one, we want to be selling retraces into that level. So we got underneath it. We retraced into the level. We got an algo signal. That's another reason, even without my added algos, you'd know to sell that orange bar. It's perfect. Now that's absolutely perfect. Now it comes down for 2 bars here and then bounces. See that? Oh, whoops. That's wrong. Comes down for 2 bars and bounces. And there's your signal right here, or your what's it called? High volume right here. So if you missed this one and we come back up and reject off that one, that could be a short too. Oh, didn't make it. That's okay. So now you can see bearish momentum is increasing for a second there, right? Bearish momentum, bearish momentum, bearish momentum. Nothing. We get this relatively seemingly reliable blue arrow on a down bar, signaling that if we get a algo up, that should be bought for a scalp. And it works. Is that a win? Is it a win? So we get long here at, let's say, 30. Our stop is 1 point under this, 1350. We get back to the voodoo range level. I don't know if we get back to this. See, the problem here is what you really want this to be a lot further so that you can target back into this zone. But here you would have only gotten, best case scenario, 8 points. Unless you held through this whole move down, and in which case you probably got your 10. Oh yeah, okay, so it does work. Phew, okay. As I say, usually it does. You just need to be able to hold through this. But that also means that if you didn't take this one, you could take this one. Because again, you didn't make a new low, right? You didn't break this low and put volume underneath it. And so this guy is potentially trapped as long as you can hold that, and you do. So any sign of aggression to the upside is good. Cool. And then we've got a potential, if you don't have that signal, you've got these 2 areas to look for. And that gets you this, right? And again, the way that trade works, it's wave to an apex, wave off the apex. Where are the volume nodes? Where are the volume? Yeah. And then if you're looking for a long, develop volume above it or above this, and then retrace into it and find aggression, or retrace into it and find aggression. Now, we can see aggression to the short side here and do the exact same thing on the opposite direction. That's not really a trade. Yeah. Right here. So now let's see how they interact here. Because there's a chance. This is a nice little pullback and absorption right into the voodoo range level, but that's okay right there. So that would be your short because we rejected here after putting volume in below it. See, so that's looking at the opposite side. Ooh, that one traps back in twice, and then fails. Okay, so it might not work so well in the opposite direction. This one was taken off the low, so we should probably just be looking for longs here. But you can see up here we took the long because, oh, I erased it, because this new high got this guy here interacted with the volume node from here. We were able to get but the momentum was increasing, right? Whereas here, like you have to believe that momentum is increasing here, and I would argue that it's not. that if anything, you've got buyers showing up now, because we didn't have any pink here, so the purple went away, right? Here's another sign where you have one purple bar followed by a green bar, and then this one purple bar followed by, or one purple background followed by a green bar. Another way you can take that entry long, right? But then here you've got bullish momentum, and it's 3 in a row. So most likely, shorting this is not going to be a very good move. Now we have 2 in a row, right? And we trapped above. So I don't mind shorting that one, but it fails. They don't always work, is what I'm trying to say. And now it looks like we're just chopping higher. And now it's just balancing, I imagine. Oh, but look, we got this signal again too, where it's 1 pink followed by no pink, and it pretty much goes nowhere, right? So when those don't work, like, you got to stop trading in that direction, because it's either balanced or more likely bullish. So this one just paused and then came right back with 3. This one will probably have 4. Yep. So see how now clearly momentum is increasing to the upside. You do not want to short here. Now, I do not short that. I'm fine missing this. Totally fine. Now let's see how many they get. They get 1 pink, right? So now if I can get a trap, I will take it short. So see how we got above this line by 1 tick? That is an okay short. That's a better short, because I've got the aggression here. And we've got 1 pink followed by nothing. So it's like increase in volume and momentum, then attempt to increase that fails, attempt to increase that fails. Eventually they're going to give up. Ooh, another one. So there's the trap, and that one works. So again, you had 2 stops there if you weren't careful. But eventually, if you kept taking them, especially if you waited for location, like the voodoo range level, these dashed lines, if you waited for location, it worked better, right? But these grindy spots are tricky. Now, if we drew the DVP to the high, which was, I can't tell if this actually trapped or not. If it didn't go any higher, then it's not a short. This one did not go any higher. So I guess this one is not as good. But let me just see. If this was the high, well, let's see here. Yeah, so the volume build is here. So I would be looking for developing volume below it, which they did, and then a retrace into it. So I guess what we might be seeing here is it did eventually work, but it might not be a good idea to take that drawn volume profile move if you're just choppy, right? I think you kind of need a wind up for those to work, because here what you're really looking for is a roll to the downside, right? Not just a move to support, which is here. Because these traps are giving you moves to support, and then they're retracing, and then they're trapping, and they're trying to go to support, and they're retracing, right? But finally they get a real move here, and so this one could potentially be the better trade. Oh, here's that trade again. The blue arrow shows up on a down bar, so the next I'll go up, and then this is beautiful. You've got purple bar, green bar, no purple, or purple in the background, no purple background, and sign of aggression. Now, let me just see, what happens if I use the previous one for the DVP? If I use this bigger one, because I'm starting to wonder if it's maybe not necessarily the highest high, but see how this one was actually divergent, right? So what if I use this one? Okay, so now it's saying short only if you develop volume below this, which means you don't short any of this. Or wait for this one and short if you develop volume under this one, which you really don't. See, none of these bearish bars got their POCs below it. So in this case, you miss this short, and you would need it to come back up and retrace. Let's see if that works. But yeah, let's just see. It would be like that. That would be the short. Right there too. See, they developed volume below both of them, came up and rejected. And rejected. Now this is the open, so that's a little unfair to judge it, but you know, we saw it work 4 times and not work once, let's say. Because technically you got a little bit something here. But again, if you think about your direction, if you wanted to be short here and you're thinking this is the high, what you should be seeing is volume increasing with price going lower. So they tried here, no, or sorry, not volume, momentum. No momentum to the downside, they get retracement. Bigger momentum to the downside, they break the low and they get an immediate response, right? That's pretty suspicious. Now when they can't, now they get volume for 1 bar, sorry, momentum, I keep saying volume. Volume's part of it, but it's more than just that. They get momentum for 1 bar, they can't break this low, and they bounce. You got to stop being bearish there. Or I have to stop being bearish there. Right? Now you get a new high. Now if I took the DVP from this, because it technically went higher, but it was divergent. Right? So if I took this one, which is the way we've been taught. Oh boy. Interesting. So now these are way separate, which could be problematic. But what you see here is we can't develop volume below both of them, right? So immediately we should be thinking long. And you'd need to get a retrace into one of these after developing volume above both of them. So now we've done that. Let's see if we get a retrace that can be buyable. No, we're not selling this because bull volume is increasing. Bull momentum is increasing. Yeah, we're not going to get a retrace. It just didn't set up. Oh, wait, maybe we will. Doesn't make it. Right here. Nope. How about down here? Right there. That would be your long. Nice. That is good for me. Okay, so at the open, they open drove higher, made a new high. Right? This is not shortable. That's that momentum move. The orange followed by diamond. So that you do not want to short that. Do not be short when you see that. See how pink is increasing? Right? So I'm usually not shorting this either unless I've got a trap or a DVP draw that works to my favor. So I'd have to get under that. They can't do it. See how they reject? Okay, now they got under it. So now they'd have to come back up and so that's the buy. Let's see if it gives you a sell up there. It'd be up here. Let's fix this. It's the high volume node here. There, right there. That's the short. Right there. Right off the PLC. Cool. You get a little push there. Now we're coming back into this one, right? Sign of aggression. Let me get a little closer. Some people are looking at this little laptop, I imagine. Okay, so now we got to move down, right? Same thing. If you want a long, you want it to get above this, which it does here. If you miss that, you need to, this one was way up here. So you need to get above that. So that one doesn't really work. But notice they got above this, and then they came back and showed volume right in that high volume node, rejecting lower. That's a long. That's a long. Oh, interesting. That failed. Again, first 30 minutes of the day, I guess. Oh, was that not the low? Oh, fuck. That wasn't the low. That wasn't, this was the low. Hold on a second. It didn't make a new low. I might have fucked that up. That might be why it didn't work. Let me draw this the right way. It's the low of the session, right? No, it's not. The low of the session is right here. See, this is tricky. It's got to be the low of the session, which is actually like at the open is here. So the low of the session is this. And that's here. So yes, we develop volume above that, right? But that one is definitely a long. Oh, it's so close. It's probably still a valid long. The only thing I don't like is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, but we didn't make a new low. No, I think it's a valid long. It just doesn't make a yeah. And this one faked you out potentially too. Now we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it stops, but we've gotten new lows, right? And there's just no reason to buy this. So they flush. Okay, was there a short? Was there a short? We said the DVP here. Oops. The DVP here was down there. So we would need, if you thought you were bearish, you need to get under that, come back up. Oh yeah, this one. So it's here to here, or here to here. Those are the two options. This one's way up here, right? So this would be a very aggressive short. Better would be that, where they reject it, and then it just falls away. So so this is a new low. You could keep drawing these. And again, this looks like increasing momentum, so I would normally not be very interested in buying this. But you can just see that even when you draw it, you can't. They're not developing volume above that. So I'm just not bullish, right? I might not get the short, but I know not to buy in that scenario. And that's important. And then here, they put in a new low. Okay, so I have to develop volume above that, which they can't do. Because look, the high volume node's here. None of those bullish PLCs are above that at all. So this could be a short if you're okay shorting the low a day, but there's not a long there. The problem with this is you're shorting low a day, so your target's here. So it's like, do you have risk reward? That'd be the question. If you're okay with that risk reward, it's a valid short. Oh, but then look, here's this again. Bright purple after a move down that does not follow through with any more purple in the background. Right here, I didn't have an algo signal. I would have liked to have an arrow like this. This one went bright purple, light purple. So I don't really like that. And we didn't get over the volume build here. This one made a new low. It made a new low here. Oh, it's way up here. So to really be bullish, we need to get above that. And then backside test it. See how this volume pointing control is inside of that high volume node. It's not good enough. So like otherwise you'd take this, right? If you didn't know that. I want to get volume above the high volume node and then come back in to test it. Otherwise I'm looking for shorts here, which is hard to do, but technically correct. So this one was like by ticks a little bit above it, which makes this potentially a valid buy, but it's kind of gross because you had one here and then two here, but you didn't make lower lows. So it's technically a buy, but I don't really like it. That one is not as bad. See how if you count this as developing volume above, we came back in and we're interacting with this high volume node. I think that one's okay. Yep. I believe we actually took this trade in the room. Okay, and then we got one, now 1, 2, 3, 4 pink backgrounds, right? So momentum's increasing to the upside. Oh, they opened. Let's see what they're doing here. Going higher, nice. Interesting. Okay, so but we should expect price to go higher. Oh, there's a nice long, right? Back into that same volume node after this one clearly developed volume higher, pulled back, gave us the long signal. That's another long. This is technically a trap, but look at all this pink. It's gonna, like, normally I would take this, But with all this pink, I'm not touching it. That's a star into that same area. But oh, it's too high. So the area actually is down here. It didn't hit it. So I'm wrong. So now the pink ends, so I can, and I made a new high, so I can draw the DVP. I'm literally just doing this all day, you guys. DVP is way at the low. I need to get under that before I short. I'm missing that short personally. Now we're back into this area again, and we defended it, and it's a long. Long. Yep. Okay. Now we've finally gotten under. See, we've got volume below this POC. We come back up. Where's the DVP for the move off the high? At the low. Okay, so I can't take that trade. It's not a trap, and it's not below that volume node, so I'm not touching that. I'm still looking long. Yeah, those are all good longs. All those signals are longs. Now we've made another high, so I can draw it again. But note, there's no pink or purple here, so it's like there's not high confidence that this is going to be. Oops! Oh, I fucked that up. There's not high confidence that this is going to be bullish for very much longer. Okay, so there's that. I developed volume above it. I need a buy signal here. Again, like 90% of these have worked. Oh, they went right through it. Now I can be short, bearish. And it just doesn't set up. Nothing there. That's not a trap back in. We have this bar here. I could see making a mistake. I'm not touching that because it's pink in the background. This one, we had bright pink followed by nothing, so that's okay. Oh, did I have a DVP trade though? Missed that. It's this move here. Oh, fuck, I did. So here's the high volume node. Right? Put in here. Get below it. Come back. That's your short. I missed that in real life too. My friend in the room, Daniel, took it and I totally missed it. Yep. Okay, back to this Larry again. I mean, you can just keep buying the same location if you want. It's not wrong. They haven't beat it yet. It's balanced, right? To get short, what I really want to see is this area continually to be defended. So you can take that. And then you can see how, like, back and forth, like, it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. Market's been open for 90 minutes. We might have had one stop, but at least 4 of these have worked, and this one's worked really well. Here comes this signal again. See how this is blue, but it's on a down wave, down bar. So this is starting to get overextended to the downside. Wow. And so if we get an up move, it's probably going to come back to the channel. There, right there. So this is a decent long, supposedly. I don't know how often it works, but I've seen it work a lot. And that one just straight up fails. That is the first stop I've seen on that in a couple days. Interesting. Okay, now we can draw the DVP again. But look at how big this volume... Like, I don't really know if I'd want to be fighting this, right? But I was thinking just to get it back to the blue line. I'm not even going to draw the DVP here because there's no way I'd fight this. So there's the retrace. Oh, and we had 5, and then we went lower, and we had 2. So maybe that is an okay place to scout back to the channel. Where's the DVP? Let's just double check. Where is the DVP? I bet you it's not at the low. But it might be. Okay. Lower than I thought it would be. All right, so to get long, we need to develop volume above that. To think that it's going to go more than anywhere in this channel. Okay, so that is technically nothing then. Looks like I had it shoulders, and it's a strong signal if you think it's bullish, but I don't think it's bullish. Yeah, see, they just start chopping in here. No, see, this is another one of these bright pink or bright purple followed by another bar. But you can, if you look at, yeah, they're kind of rejecting this low. I guess it's not a horrible place to buy, but it stops and it just flushes. So there's probably a little more work to do with that signal. I think it needs to be a situation where it's not just balanced; it's like capitulation, basically. This looked like balance for a second, and then it got bearish. But if anything, I want to be looking at shorts here, right? And so, I mean, you could technically see where the DVP off the low is. It's right there. So if you want to be short, you got to get price underneath that, come up and reject off of it. It didn't set up with a sell signal. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 purple in the background. 1, 2. This is the first scalp to the upside I'd consider taking. But my target is really back into this lower area of the right there. Like that's as far as you'd expect that to go. So if you want those kind of little 8 to 10 point scalps, that works. But it's pretty aggressive. Now this trap back in, see, this was the low. We got under it and we came back with an algo signal. So if you think it's balanced, that's an okay trade. It looks pretty bearish to me. Yeah, it's just going to keep going. So those will hurt you if you trade against the trend. Now momentum clearly bearish, and we just keep making lower and lower lows. And as you can see, momentum is not the way that this system will miss a lot of these momentum moves unless you can get a retrace like here. Yeah, see, it didn't quite get you there. Just not enough of a retrace, unless you're just trading location. This one, it's these. Okay, that one probably got you it, right? Doesn't work though. Okay, that one technically gives you a little bit. Here's another one of those longs. Arrow on a down, says long back to the channel. It gets you back to the channel. That one worked. So that literally has worked like 90% of the time. That's nice. Where's the DVP there? Because it might be working primarily when this is working. Oh, okay, way up there. And this is right there. All right, so we have to get volume above that for this move to work. And then hold one of those. Volume above. That's it. Oh, but it's way too high on the so it's got to get higher. If I want to use this one, I've got to have it in the bottom of this. That's not. Yeah, I think I actually took this in real life. I got to remember that even though that looks like it got volume above, it didn't. See how this one is pink and the VPOC is not above both of these lines. This one and this one. It's not good enough. Not this one doesn't matter anymore. But it's got to get above this bar here. It did get above the purple line, which is the initial way I was taught. But when it's pink, it's not necessarily valid. And so what I'm doing to go over that is I'm marking out the high volume node, right? And so you could also just use a identified area there, which is like, or a location, which in this case is the voodoo range level, which we did not get a point of control up on an up bar, and it immediately rejects. So if anything, that's a short. But I don't think it's a short. I think it's just don't long it, even though it appears to want to go higher here. There's no momentum to the upside to take a trade so high on the channel. That's the problem. You want your longs to develop down here and your shorts to develop up here. So while it does go up one, if anything, you just scalp these shorts still and treat this like a wave to the high, I think. So for instance, this, I did that again. Erase. So if you think about this as a wave to a high, now as long as you can get volume below this and retest it, you can short it. So right there. Now this, if it reject, right there, that's your short. And does it work? I think you get like 10 points. That's bull. But see, it came back to this one. I'm finding it's very difficult when these lines don't line up. When the wave to the low and the wave off the low, or the wave to the high and the wave off the high don't line up, you get a lot of chop in between them. And so trying to take longs down here and shorts up here, you get stuck a lot. So if you want to find the times when this doesn't work, that's when it is. It's when these two lines don't line up, because they end up creating support and resistance, and you don't really know which way to take it. I think I took a loss in there too. So now look, they've collected this liquidity. This is your best short out of all of these, because they've gotten up above this high, this red line, and then immediately rejected. That is a good short. Yeah. And then to get a good long, you really need to get under this, which this did not do. So you got under it there. That's your long. And finally, we've interacted with this. Remember, this is the wave to the low. Oh, it erased it. This came from this. Whoops, I pushed the wrong button. This. Oh, I'm wrong. It came from, what was it? Was it off the low? Nope, those were together. Where does that come from? So this is to right about here. So we need to get volume above that, which happens right there, and then they'd have to save it, which they do not. Instead they reject. I don't remember. This must have been an overnight low that we had marked, but it bounced off of it really nicely. See, we got volume above here, and then we went too low, and so you can't buy that. It's got to literally reject or bounce right away. But this is that level, that wave off the low, and once you get volume below it, if you reject it, it's going to go lower. Tricky. Okay, so here's lunch. Now, see how it's getting really choppy? Right? That wave to the low, wave to the high is probably not going to work as well. Because they're just not going anywhere. We need it to wind up, and see how there's no purple or pink? Like, we need it to go one direction or the other and then trade off of that. So, like, even if I miss all of these traps, see, like, I want them to get all the way up here above this red line or below this green line. I'm okay just not trade. I'll just walk away. Which is why I have it ring bells when it happens. You'll hear the ding right there. That's your long. For the scalp, right? But then when it rejects, when it rejects off of that previous volume build, which is this gray area here, because it's moved in one direction or the other and broken one of these green lines or red lines, now range can expand. You can also see volume expanding, right? So your volume finally started to get bigger. Now it's going to expand to the downside. It expanded to the upside here. Oh, it didn't. So it did it here, and then it had this one was divergent. That's why this failed too. It ran into that high volume node and rejected. I would expect this to be tradable. And now we should get increased range. See that? So now these traps are going to start to work again. Whereas when we were consolidating in here, you can't trust these signals very much because even if they work, they're only going to give you 5 points because you're trading in like a 10-point range. Once you expand the range and you start breaking beyond those highs and lows, now the signals start to work again, right? So now this one should work for a short. Yep. And I bet if we redraw, I don't know, but I bet if we redraw this DVP, we got volume above, we came back in and we bounced. There. That's it. Sign of aggression. Yeah. Okay. So that is how that works. That's really good to see. I was not totally sure how to filter that out, and so like I said, I'm still working on automating that one. But that looks like that is the solution to that. So I will have to review this. Hold on real quick. Let me just write this down. Let me review this one more time. All right. Because now that's a couple... So the reason they were working earlier, and we'll confirm this with what's happening right now. The reason that these were working so well earlier is we had range expansion. All right, so when we went overnight and into the open, we saw they started to work when range was expanding like this, right? We could easily draw the volume profile to the high, identify the location, and expect to get rejection out of there as long as we can establish volume below it, right? And then this to the low. So now, DVP. Okay, that's way up there, so let's try off the low, right down there. Here's the high volume node. Establish volume above. That is our long, right? So that works nicely as long as you have range expanding, right? And I think we saw it work. I'll have to count, but I think I counted like 5 times in a row it was working. It stopped working when things started to get choppy. It worked here too, if you remember. Yeah, it waved to the high here. Oops, not price projection. This. algo signal off of that, and then any retest of that, or wave off the high down to bottom. So this one might not set up. Yeah, it just doesn't set up. So, but that's good. I mean, that's fine. If it doesn't stop me out, it's fine. And then for the low, whoops, and then for the low, this is the new low, which you'd have to be tracking. Wave to the low, wave off the low. High volume node, high volume node. That's your long, or that's your long, or any of these. Otherwise, you have to get a pullback. And this one might just, you could say that one didn't set up if you didn't catch that. Oops, I didn't draw that right. It's got to be from the low to that last one. Okay, let's use that. That looks good. So, establish volume below, retests right there. That's your short. And like I said, it stops working when you get choppy. You can just keep doing that over and over again. Once it starts to get choppy, and range is no longer expanding, but instead contracting, now drawing these, like that one still works. But if they're like this, that one might just not set up, but your high volume node is like this, give or take. Let me get rid of this one because that's old. This one just doesn't set up. Unless it shorts, right? No short signal. But it starts to get, oh, actually, then it expands in range again here. No, where does it start to get really choppy? Here, we can try it here. It should work here. Because range has been expanding. So if we can get volume above that, or that, it's basically the same spot. If we can get volume above it and retest it, and then bounce right there. That should be the long. Oh, did it not make it over it? It might be this one. Ah, this is where it starts to not work. Okay, perfect. So it starts to not work. The draw was done during a range expansion. And then what happened was it started to get choppy, right? So the wave to the low, and this was the low of the day, right? So it really should work. And the wave off the low, the lines were in the same spot. This is where I was confused just like 10 minutes ago. Because these usually work, right? And I was like, well, what's going on here? What happened was this was still expanding range, expanding volume. Everything was good. Market was rotating, very tradable, right? But what ended up happening was what we want here is a bounce, right? So we need to establish, the first step of this is establish volume above. Well, the high volume node really ends about at the voodoo range level, that dashed line, 11,286.25. This, I said, is a pink bar, so it's not all that relevant because most of that range is people pulling sell orders. There are some buyers there, but there's definitely no aggressive buyers there. So even though that VPOC is up there, it's not that important. And when you come back right away, they do not hold that level. So now when that happens, we would now need to establish volume above it again. It's only, I think, that first test back in, if you establish volume below it, if anything, I would think now we've established volume below, so we might be able to short off of here. But you can see that that would have taken 2 tries. And even that doesn't work because what happened is the channel started to get totally flat. The market stopped rotating. It just got stuck here. You can see that they tried to put bullish momentum in, right? It's pink, but they just, until they get this lift off, nothing is going to work here because even if your signal quote unquote works, you're only getting 5 points for it. So it's like, yeah, you got to push to the upside, but and it went to resistance, but resistance is only 5 points away. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to redraw these with this being the high. If you wanted to look for the short, here, let me erase these. You'd have to redraw this after this ends. So if you're like, okay, we finally got some extension here beyond the chop zone, it's at the low. So that means we'd have to get price below that and then reject it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. They're not rejecting, right? And that was to the high. So here it's just not working to get lower. And now you can see we're consolidating again. We're not getting expansion. So I think I have to hold off on that trade whenever we're contracting like this. See how tight this gets? So I can't be measuring these like 2-bar waves. Instead, what I should be doing in this situation, I think, is looking at a higher time. I mean, even this higher time frame isn't very good, but isn't a lot of low rotations. But look, I bet if I use this higher rotation, yeah, look at that. With the higher rotation, ooh, these are separated again. But I've got a volume node up here to get short off of. Otherwise, I've got to get volume below that. So we get up here. If I get a push up to that and a rejection, I could short it, right? Which happens right there. And that one gets me a piece. This one just doesn't trigger. The lower one, the volume off, the volume build off the high, we get volume below it here. There's no trigger here, so we have to wait. We can't just short any signal down here. We have to get volume under it and then see a rejection right away. It just doesn't happen. Instead, we start getting buyers showing up there, But rather than just using those same levels for the buyers, instead we have to wait until they expand to the downside. So see how this is tight, expand, right? So, and this is technically the low, but even if you did this, I bet you this will still work. Off the low, volume build. Ooh, this one's big. This one's probably better because that other one's really big. So what it's saying is, what I'm saying is, you have to get volume above this, which happens there. It's pink, but higher time frame. Then we would need to see it bounce right there. Oops. The white diamond. Yep. So that is the solution. Cool. So if it's choppy, now does that work here too? Off the low. Let me see. Whoops. Fuck. Okay. Thought I heard 4 hour. That would have sucked. Okay. And then erase lines. This must be from the other time frame. Okay, so volume build. Again, I use the bigger, not the lowest, but the bigger one. Let me just see. What happens if I use the actual wave to the low? Okay, it's right there. That is the volume build. Pulls back into it, bounces. No algo signal, just a pink bar. Pulls back into it, bounces with an algo signal. That one's the buy. Nice. Okay, got it. Cool. So I will improve that tomorrow. I will be able to trade that better. Look how here we have all this bullish momentum. I am not shorting this. When we break above it, I am shorting it right here. And then if we break above that, I will short it again as long as there's not more momentum. This is an okay long, just because it's a pullback. This is the short. Note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. Less momentum, higher price, divergence, right? Less momentum, sell. If we want to do the DVP version, it's way at the high. Get volume below, get a retrace, sell it, right? Off the high. Yeah, the volume build is here. This is your sell, no question. I did not take that in real life, and I should have. Now look, I bet you we're back into that area. Oh no, we're not. So this one, it's not a great trap. You just have the, it's not good enough. I wouldn't have taken it. Now we're starting to consolidate again. I'm not going to draw any DVPs. See, consolidate. Okay, there's our first move down. It did not make a new low. There. Wave to low. At the bottom. Can buy it. right there. That's the buy, and there's your long. That's fucking cool. When it works, it's so great. Okay, this is supposed to be a sell, right? Yellow arrow on an up bar. As long as you're not super bearish, this usually gives you a retrace. The problem is the retrace is usually back to the channel. We're at the channel. So even though this got a little bit overextended, it's not going to give you, there's not much room to get back to the middle of the channel here. So it's valid, it's just support's too close. Right, and now bullish momentum's coming in. We got 1, 2, and then 1, 2. So they're going higher, but they can't get more momentum. This is really your first opportunity to trade it as long as it takes out a red line, which it did. So this is your first opportunity to sell. It's also back in the exact same spot. Right? If you see, it's the same exact place as this. Oh, sorry, this. Still the same area of this high volume node that we identified from this high, which was also associated with the voodoo range level. It approaches it, it rejects. Cool, and you get a little trade. Nice little trade. Can't talk. So this is not actually the low. And look how it's getting all tight in here. Oops. Fuck that up again. It's getting all tight in here, so I doubt that this actually works. Oh, okay. Yeah. So high volume node. Just like here. Volume above. Pull back. That's your long. It goes higher. Now we're going higher. 1, 1, 2, 3. Volume's increasing. Momentum is increasing. I'm probably not selling this, although we did have bright followed by black. But so I'm probably not selling it, and I'm expecting it to go higher here. But if I did have a reason to think this was the high, I would measure this, and we'd see that it's at the very bottom, and that means that to sell it, I need to develop volume down here. So I'm not going to reverse these and try to buy it off of that. I don't think that makes sense. It's not how we're supposed to do it. But like I said, if I can get a return to this area or that, ooh, high volume node goes all the way to here. Get volume above it, come back in and bounce. That becomes a long, and then if this bounces, that becomes a long. So that's a pretty fucking cool move. I will keep practicing it. It's early Globex is not a great time to trade, you guys. It's really slow, and it's hard to like hold positions properly. And if I can't execute trades properly, I try not to trade them. The only way I would do it is just really small size. But I got to do some other stuff anyway. I hope this has been helpful. I know I got a little bit of on a tangent, but I hope if anything what this demonstrates is, first of all, that we have a lot of choices when it comes to how to trade. You can be aggressive, you can be conservative, a lot of ways to do it. But what's really cool is you could literally pick 1 or 2 of these trade setups, master them, and just take that and easily get 10 to 15 points a day at least a couple times. And like I said, today turned out to be pretty much the same as most days, where if you had the direction, if you had the phase right, you could trade in either direction and be profitable. The big mistakes were when it looks like I was trying to use trades that work best with expanding volume and expanding momentum during consolidation, or trying to take trades that work best in balance when we were fighting the trend. So that is the lesson to learn here. I did have a positive day. I think it's cleared my P&L, otherwise I'd show you, but it was not as positive as I would like it to be. Started out strong and then just took a couple stops doing what I thought were on-process trades. But like I said, I figured out why that wasn't working, and that's what matters. So that's why we spend this time away from the DOM to see where we can improve. So I hope this has been helpful, guys. If there's anything else you want me to cover, something you want to learn, whatever, let me know. If you want to learn more about the algo, you can talk to Simon, who's the primary developer and coach in the Trade and Perform room. He is available here at tradeandperform@gmail.com. That's trade, the letter N, and perform is Simon. You can ask Simon for 5-day pass. And let's see, Tell Simon, Ben promised you a 5-day pass, and he will oblige and let you be in the room and see what we do with this algo. If you are already in Simon's room using this algo and you've mastered it and you want to know more about building your own signals, right, based on this, talk to me in the Slack channel. In the Trading Performance Slack channel, you can DM me or just mention it in the general channel, and we can find a time to chat, and I can help you either simplify this, such as someone wanted me to help them. They felt that this was even too busy, and they were only trading purple bar star and pink bar star. So for instance, when there's pink bar followed by a star or purple bar followed by a star, it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, it works a lot. This one did not work. Fighting the trend. Here's one that works. Purple bar star, right, gives you a lift, and then pink bar star will do the opposite. They didn't want to have to wait for the pink bar and the star. They didn't want to see stars unless there was a purple bar behind it. So they didn't want to see this star. It wasn't helpful for them. I personally find this star helpful because it tells me that this guy's trapped, and it helps me hold my runners here. But if you're just starting out using a system and you just don't want as many signals, I can help you make the stars only show up when there's a purple bar behind it, right, for instance, or whatever else you decide to do, right? Like, so if you have an idea of something you want to do when it comes to this algo, and you must have the algo on your desktop to be able to adjust it, right? You can't just be in Simon's room. You have to have a premium membership, which is $250 a month, but like I said, totally worth it in my opinion. I'd probably pay more, honestly. But yeah, if you've already got it on your desktop and you've already gotten used to it, right? You're not overwhelmed by it. It's working, but you want to improve your win rate, or you want to be more disciplined, or maybe you just want more trade ideas. Talk to me and we will hook up. And like I said, I can help you build something similar to what I've built here. Obviously, yours is not going to look like mine. Yours will probably be simpler because I'm also identifying new ideas at all times. So like these backgrounds and the arrows and stuff like that are eventually going to be replaced, as well as all this, with just like a dot or another color, right? So you can simplify your charts or make them as complicated as possible. And if you're in the room already, and if you have Simon's desktop on your Simon's algo on your desktop, I can help you optimize it. So let me know. Thank you again for checking it out. If you guys want to watch this again in like 2x speed, because I know it went kind of long and it's kind of confusing stuff, I will leave this up on YouTube for at least a couple days. So feel free to do that. And then you can send me questions to Twitter, and I am at Redben Trader on Twitter. Okay, so you can just I don't know why that's okay. So that's how you can get a hold of me to ask any questions at all.